Entering the home, the black-haired woman announces she bought fruit sets using scholarship and company money.
The seated woman dismisses the achievement, noting everyone gets scholarships and the neighbor received a performance bonus.
The seated woman criticizes the fruit's origin while the black-haired woman apologizes for the mistake.
Two young men arrive home and their mother warmly greets them with plans to head out.
As they leave to visit their grandmother, the mother praises Lee Hyun-ai for passing university exams.
The mother tells the black-haired woman she does not need to know where they are going.
Before the scene shifts, the mother orders her to leave and take the fruit with her.
Left alone in the quiet hallway, the woman stands motionless beside her rejected gift of fruit.
Her expression remains somber and dejected as she reflects on the cold treatment from her family.
She resigns herself to the familiar pain she has endured since childhood, accepting her lonely reality.
Carrying the fruit basket, she walks past loitering men into the shadows of a dark alleyway.
A sharp metallic sound echoes through the silence, punctuating the transition into the next quiet scene. Returning to her dim apartment, the woman moves through the shadows of her solitary living space. Water flows steadily from a faucet, providing a rhythmic background to her evening routine at home. Steaming water fills the air as she steps out of the shower, seeking comfort after a long day.
A light flickers on, illuminating the room as she prepares to end her difficult day. That is one way to dodge homework. The woman collapses onto her bed in total exhaustion. While she lies resting, her phone vibrates beside her, catching her attention in the quiet room. She notes that a new update for the novel I Need to Be Adopted has appeared. Her phone screen displays an illustration of a knight and a young girl from the story. The silhouettes of the novel's main characters appear as she focuses on the fictional world. She ponders how the novel's heroine is loved by everyone, unlike her own difficult personal life. The woman finds solace in the story, viewing the fictional world as a source of consolation.
Gripping her phone tightly, she continues reading the story that provides her an escape from reality.
She holds the device steady, fully immersed in the narrative of the novel she loves dearly. As gears turn in an abstract space, she expresses a shared desire for a different life. A loud thud resonates in the darkness, marking a sudden shift in her conscious state. Her thoughts fade into the void as she drifts off to sleep, clinging to her wishes.
A young girl with pink hair and golden eyes stares forward with a look of bewilderment. Waking in a lavish bedroom, she realizes her situation aligns with the romance fantasy novel she reads.
She observes dragon ornaments and paintings placed everywhere, confirming her arrival in the dragon family's grand estate.
Standing on the stairs, she confirms her presence within the world of the novel I Need to Be Adopted.
The pink-haired girl explores the magnificent palace while maids and attendants go about their daily work. A formal record introduces the dragon family and the predecessor, Badad Etam, who was imprinted with the black dragon.
Sharp dragon claws reach towards swirling green vines in a decorative and symbolic artistic frame.
Elegant hands rest near the thick vines, signaling a shift in the mystical family's long history. A caped man stands with a large sword, representing the martial power of the noble house. A sudden burst of dark ink or blood splatters across the screen, signaling impending violent conflict.
The narration explains how mana instability leads to a side effect that incites a dangerous urge to kill.
A man holds a blood-stained sword as the text describes the hereditary disease known as brightening.
Darkness descends upon a woman in white, illustrating the tragic fate associated with the family's curse.
Floating flowers frame text describing a character with a personality like sunshine and an upright moral disposition.
A portrait of a smiling woman with brown hair represents the ideal heroine of the story. The narrator considers her knowledge of the book and assumes she should have possessed the heroine.
The pink-haired girl looks at her reflection, preparing to face her new life in the story.
Looking into the glass, she notes that her pink hair matches the traits of her expectations. A close-up focus confirms the hair color is indeed pink, according to the visual text box. The perspective shifts to a girl with black hair, identified by a specific text box label.
Another close-up confirms the hair is completely black, marking a significant deviation from the previous girl.
Iron stares silently through the large window of her lavish new home. A wave of confusion washes over her as she questions her new identity. A formal plaque confirms her new name in this world is Iron Etam. Narrated records describe her as an illegitimate daughter disowned for her reckless behavior. She recalls being kicked out of her family following a disastrous New Year's party.
A sense of profound misfortune looms over her as her tragic past unfolds.
A maid brings a steaming cup of hot chocolate topped with fluffy marshmallows.
Mila shouts an alarm for the lady to stop as Iron chugs the drink.
Iron's golden eyes widen with a shock that registers deep within her soul.
Mela rushes to her side, asking if she is okay and warning the drink is hot. Mela suggests cooling the drink with a biscuit while Iron winces from the heat. Iron declares that the hot chocolate is the most delicious thing she has tasted.
Mela explains the drink is hot chocolate and she fetched it while working in the estate. In a tender memory, Mila reads a book to Iron during a quiet afternoon. Iron asks Mela if there is a festival scheduled for tomorrow while continuing her drink.
Suddenly, Iron spits out her beverage in a comical burst of sheer surprise.
Mela cries out in shock as Iron remains determined to carry out her plans.
That is one way to dodge homework. Iron tumbles clumsily onto the ground.
She stands up quickly, realizing she cannot waste any time lingering by the fountain.
Iron shouts to Mela that she will be back soon and to bring her chocolate later. Her tiny feet patter across the polished floor as she runs through the mansion. She intends to pick the best nursery school using her knowledge of the novel. Iron notes that the leg length of a 5-year-old child is quite inconvenient.
She remembers an orphanage run by a retired hero from the Great War.
Reaching the library doors, Iron peeks inside and lets out a gasp of surprise. She wanders through the massive library, struggling to recall specific details from the novel. Seeing a man nearby, she wonders why her memory of the story is failing. A close-up of her golden eyes shows her focus narrowing on the distant figure. The black-haired man stands with his back to her while reading a library book. A sharp, intense look in his eyes suggests a high level of martial power. A formal caption introduces the powerful and mysterious man as illegitimate. Iron recognizes him as a first-class character whose striking looks she cannot forget. She panics internally, wondering why illegitimate is in the library today. Erno asks the young girl if she knows where to find books about divine magic.
Iron stares in silence while a loading icon appears above her stunned head.
She tells herself to stop being captivated by his beauty and stay professional.
Iron points toward a bookshelf with a bright smile and innocent, childish sounds.
Erno stares at the small child in silence, offering no immediate verbal response. Fearing he hates her speech, Iron decides to pretend she doesn't know him. She searches the wooden shelves, knowing the book she needs is hidden nearby. Her eyes light up with pure joy as she finally finds the volume. She views a picture of the hero's nursery school inside the old book. Iron cheers that she found the book, while Erno looks at her with growing interest. Erno thanks her for the help, noting she seems very familiar with the large library.
Erno asks what she is reading, leading Iron to panic about falling into a trap.
Iron hesitates to answer, her mouth hanging open as she considers her next move. She offers a bright, forced smile while hugging the heavy book to her chest. Erno acknowledges her silent response with a simple nod and a calm, quiet confirmation. Erno walks away into the distance as Iron watches him go with relief. Iron experiences a strange sensation as the book she held falls onto the floor. Her dress collapses into a heap as she suddenly vanishes from within her clothing. The library floor remains silent, occupied only by the discarded remnants of her outfit. A small pink dragon with golden eyes emerges playfully from the abandoned blue dress. She recalls her public transformation at a party that nearly led to her expulsion. The dragon Iron decides to hide behind a bookshelf before attempting to return home. She discovers a sparkling ring on the floor and fears being trapped as a dragon. Picking up the precious item, she admires its beauty and wonders who lost it. A sudden feeling of familiarity strikes her as she examines the intricate jewelry more closely. A mental image of illegitimate holding a book appears as she makes the connection. Iron gasps in shock as she realizes the man is standing right in front of her. Illegitimate stares down with a cool, detached gaze, oblivious to the small dragon's thoughts. His intense golden eyes remain fixed on the strange pile of clothes on the floor. Erno observes the blue dress as it begins to move erratically on the library floor. The fabric twitches and rustles, indicating that something is hiding underneath the discarded garment. He stands silently over the moving heap, contemplating the mysterious situation unfolding before him. Erno kneels down, preparing to uncover whatever is causing the dress to move. He reaches out with his hands, lifting the heavy blue fabric to reveal the culprit. He offers a simple, knowing acknowledgement while gazing at the small child he just found. Iron has successfully transformed back into a human, looking up with a sheepish expression. Iron smiles brightly, holding the ring and claiming she was just picking up the jewelry. Internally, she panics about nearly getting caught before transforming back just in time. She reflects on her lucky escape and decides to act naturally to resolve the situation. Iron confirms it is his ring, explaining it fell under the shelf and she cleaned it. She presents the polished ring in her small palms, hoping he accepts her explanation. Erno confirms the ring is important and expresses surprise at how hard she searched. Erno pats her head appreciatively while Iron feels exhausted and desperate to retreat. Recalling his dislike for skinship, she carefully returns the ring without making direct contact. Erno examines the glowing ring in his hand, his expression unreadable as she pulls away. A focused look in his golden eyes suggests he is intrigued by the young girl. Iron senses his intense gaze and wonders if she has made some kind of mistake. She nervously asks to leave, clutching her books tightly as she prepares to run. Iron sprints away as fast as possible, leaving the man alone in the library shadows. Erno remains still, watching her retreating figure with a quiet, contemplative air. A playful smirk crosses his face as he decides that this encounter was quite entertaining.
Irene continues her journey with a look of intense concentration, determined to follow her plan.
The Grand Atom Mansion stands majestically under a clear sky, marking the banquet day.
A sign confirms the location as the Grand Banquet Hall within the vast Edom estate. Irene enters the crowded hall, marveling at the presence of all the prestigious family members.
She looks around in awe at the sheer scale and luxury of the social gathering.
Narrated thoughts reflect on how terrifying her public transformation must have been for her.
She resolves to take control of her new story, feeling confident in her future.
A final thought emphasizes her lack of worry as she embraces her new identity.
Memories show her preparing for escape by researching orphanages and gathering a secret fund. She feels prepared to leave if things go wrong, satisfied with her careful planning.
Irene is suddenly startled by a booming announcement that echoes through the Grand Hall. A soldier announces the arrival of the Empire's Defender and the 12th Dragon.
The sound of marching boots draws everyone's attention to the entrance of the banquet hall.
The powerful men of the Edom family arrive in full formal regalia, commanding immediate respect. The Grand Duke walks past toward the throne, signaling the start of the official ceremony.
A strand of hair flutters as a character acknowledges a command with a simple confirmation.
Miral Atam, the 12th head of the family, officially declares the start of the New Year's gathering. Erno Edom, the eldest son of Miral, stands prominently as he is formally introduced to the assembly.
Selian Etam, the second son of the Duke, expresses his blatant boredom during the formal family introductions.
Irene observes the gathered elite, realizing these are the powerful figures she must now navigate.
The narration highlights the immense power held by those who inherited the thickest concentration of dragon blood.
Irene senses the heavy intimidation filling the hall, while noting the surreal, fantasy-like nature of the event.
Erno catches Irene's eye and offers a friendly wave, leaving the young girl completely shocked and speechless.
The crowd begins to gossip about Erno's interaction with the child, making Irene realize she is being noticed.
Irene decides to return the greeting with a nervous wave to avoid drawing even more negative attention.
A focused view of Erno shows him maintaining a calm and composed demeanor amidst the social buzz.
An official asks for permission to begin the first order, and Morel commands the proceedings to start immediately. The glasses-wearing official begins reading from his documents, announcing the first person to step forward for review.
Wiln is summoned to the front of the hall, appearing visibly anxious as he clutches his research papers.
Wiln offers a nervous greeting to the Duke, his face pale as he prepares for his official evaluation.
As the new year of the Duke of Edom begins, Irene silently contemplates starting a new study.
Wilm reports on the recent discovery of a new plant found within the distant eastern continent.
As Wiln describes the plant's effects and scent, Morel abruptly cuts him off with a stern command.
Morel questions if Wiln bothered to read previous research, leaving the man confused and stammering in response.
The Duke mocks Wiln for presenting old research as new, questioning his intelligence with a sharp public insult.
Morel's expression turns terrifyingly intense as he prepares to deliver a further, more personal indictment against the man. Mural accuses Wiln of wasting research funds at bars, leaving the man frozen in fear as his secrets vanish.
The Duke continues listing Wiln's crimes, including harassment and debt, causing the man to panic in total desperation.
Morel stares him down with glowing eyes, daring the man to point out anything that is not true. Morel asks why he should keep a man alive who tarnishes the family name, leaving Wiln utterly speechless. Overwhelmed by sheer terror and the weight of his exposure, Wiln trembles violently before the entire banquet hall.
Wiln collapses on the floor, begging for forgiveness, suffering a social defeat as Irene watches the brutal spectacle. The records explain that the New Year's gathering is specifically used by the Duke to expose dark histories. Irene looks on with a sweat-beaded brow, worrying about the numerous things one could be scolded for today.
Irene recalls how the original story depicted Morel as a ruthless man who treated others like absolute garbage.
As the ceremony proceeds to the next person, Irene feels a sense of mounting dread about her turn.
A close-up of Irene's face captures her growing anxiety as she realizes the severity of the Duke's judgment.
Irene tries to reassure herself that there are too many family members for her to be targeted next.
Surrounded by a bright aura, Irene steps forward as all eyes in the grand hall turn toward her.
Selian calls her a piece of fluff while Erno insists on using her proper name, noting how small she is.
Morel corrects his own nickname for her, officially addressing her as Irene with a stern but focused look.
Morel asks for her plans for the year, while Irene internally screams about her secret goal to escape. Irene's golden eye reflects a swirl of panic and determination as she prepares to answer the Duke's question. The Grand Edom estate stands tall against the sky as the high-stakes banquet continues inside the mansion. Irene begins her formal response with a hesitant stutter, her heart racing as she faces her powerful family. Standing small before the throne, Irene thinks about her desperate wish to leave the house without any interference. Morel listens to her words with a look of genuine confusion, trying to parse the young girl's strange behavior.
The entire room, including the brothers and the guests, is filled with confusion and whispering over the child's statement. Muriel asks for clarification on why she wants to leave, while Irene confirms her intent with a small voice.
Irene panics internally, begging for a stop to the nonsense regarding her birth secrets and her reckless behavior.
Muriel asks what secret she is referring to, causing Irene to freeze with a shocked and bewildered expression. Irene stammers and fumbles for words, realizing she may have said too much in front of the formidable Duke.
Irene laments how announcements have always been a disaster for her, recalling past moments of total social chaos. A soldier rushes into the hall, urgently shouting that a major disaster has occurred that requires immediate attention.
The messenger reports that the floating stone mine has collapsed and several workers are currently trapped inside the wreckage.
The scene shifts to a chaotic mine collapse where workers report that several people are injured.
Morel exhales deeply, expressing concern over how to manage the safety of the workers after the accident.
A sharp, intense focus on Morel's glowing golden eyes underscores the severity of the current crisis.
Irene looks down with a troubled expression, feeling the weight of the tense atmosphere in the hall.
The Duke commands the family to stay until the next gathering, receiving an immediate confirmation from a soldier.
Morel maintains a stern, unyielding profile as he prepares to address the next order of business.
Morel points directly at specific men in the crowd, singling them out one by one with authority. Morel orders the men to stop talking and follow him quietly as they stammer in utter shock.
Morel demands to know if he must clean his own sword, causing the men to panic desperately. Irene watches in silence as one of the accused men breaks down into tears while being led away. Morel suddenly turns his attention to Irene, causing her to jump as he addresses her directly again.
Irene stutters in a state of complete shock, unable to form a coherent response to the Duke's attention. Overwhelmed by the intense pressure, Irene's face scrunches up as she struggles to hold back her tears.
Standing alone in the center of the hall, Irene desperately wishes for a handkerchief to wipe her eyes. The gathered guests look on with expressions of pity and surprise at the young child's emotional state. Irene tries to compose herself, worrying if the Duke is angry and telling herself not to cry. Turning to a nearby man, Irene timidly asks if she can borrow a handkerchief for her tears. Irene looks up with wide, watery eyes, her adorable and pitiable expression capturing the attention of the room.
Multiple guests immediately rush forward, competing with each other to offer the young girl their own handkerchiefs.
A white handkerchief decorated with small red hearts is held out toward the tearful and hopeful Irene.
A close-up of Irene's golden eyes shows them shimmering with tears as she reacts to the kindness.
Irene thinks about how sweet everyone is as she reaches out her hand to take the offered gift.
A hand suddenly snatches the heart-patterned handkerchief away just before Irene can take it for herself.
Morel asks when he ever told her to wipe her tears, warning her to think carefully before the next meeting. Morel calls her hair fluffy and claims it is useless, even as cow food, while turning to leave.
Irene is left stunned and horrified, imagining a cow eating something and wondering about those strange people.
Morel barks that she does not need to know such things, dismissing her with a stern, authoritative tone.
The Duke's face remains hard and unreadable as he prepares to depart from the grand banquet hall. Confusion fills the air as voices question where the group is going while things are still unresolved.
Muriel walks away from the throne, leaving Irene behind to dwell on his bizarre comment about cow food.
Irene breaks into a cold sweat, realizing she accidentally called the formidable Duke her grandfather in public. Panic consumes Irene as she fears she has truly angered him and wonders if her life is over.
A fleeting memory of Irene smiling brightly contrasts sharply with her current state of absolute crippling terror.
Muriel stops in his tracks, his expression shifting to one of genuine surprise as he processes her words. The Duke stands tall before Irene, asking for clarification with a simple, stunned question regarding her previous statement.
Muriel contemplates the word grandpa in silence, while Irene flinches, sensing the weight of her massive mistake.
An official tentatively calls out to the Duke, sensing the sudden shift in the powerful man's demeanor.
Morel waves a hand dismissively, addressing Irene as a fluffy thing before continuing his walk out of the hall.
Morel warns her to be fully prepared for a thorough inspection at the next gathering as he leaves.
Irene watches him go, her mind already racing toward the next time she must face the terrifying Duke.
A quiet moment of reflection captures Irene's side profile as the intense banquet finally comes to a close. As the men ascend the stairs, Irene stands small and alone, worrying if she received a murder notice. The scene shifts to a peaceful day with clear skies and lush green trees outside the mansion. Erin sits dejectedly on a wooden bench in the garden, sighing as a fountain splashes nearby. She laments that she cannot find a good escape route despite searching the grounds for a way out. Irene cringes as she recalls shouting her desire to leave, feeling she has created a shameful black history. Suddenly, Iron is startled by a small object hitting her on the head with a sharp impact.
Iron reaches for a crumpled roll of paper on the bench, wondering if the wind blew it there.
Sensing something else, Iron looks up toward the sky with a look of extreme shock and confusion.
A heavy object falls from above, heading directly toward Iron as she watches in stunned, wide-eyed silence. Iron sits on a park bench as 3 boys approach her with mocking expressions. The freckled boy asks Iron why she is alone without a home or friends.
Iron stares at the group of boys with a growing sense of silent annoyance.
The freckled boy sarcastically asks Iron to fetch the object he just threw at her.
Iron stares ahead as the boys mock her for lacking a proper home education.
The bullies discuss Iron's lack of parents, finding amusement in her isolated and lonely situation.
Iron stands as a large boulder suddenly appears in the foreground, looming over the scene.
The freckled boy claims his mother forbade him from playing with orphans like the girl.
The group continues to laugh at Iron, questioning what she actually possesses in her life. The boys find the mention of Iron's birth secrets to be incredibly funny and mockingly laugh.
One boy wipes away a tear from laughing too hard at Iron's expense and misfortune.
The laughing boy suddenly flinches as a terrifying shadow falls over his face in the area.
The freckled boy points behind his friend, stammering in a state of pure, paralyzed terror.
A single speech bubble conveys the mounting dread regarding what is standing behind the boy.
The boy asks what is behind him while small pebbles fall onto his head from above.
Well, that's one way to win an argument with a boulder. With her eyes shining, Iron looms over the boys while holding the heavy rock aloft.
The freckled boy stares up at the massive boulder in absolute wide-eyed and silent shock.
A large sound effect panel signals a massive impact as something heavy hits the ground.
The terrified boys threaten to tell their mother, screaming about dire consequences for Iron's actions.
Iron yells back for them to tell her, stating that having parents is useless if they have personalities like theirs.
The freckled boy calls Iron a trashy thing as he and his friends scramble away.
Iron stands still, her eyes glowing as she processes the cruel insults about her life.
A boy's hand touches the boulder while calling Iron's strange behavior a bit unusual.
Iron lifts the boulder again, calling the fleeing boys amoebas who do not understand damage compensation.
The boulder crashes into the ground once more, puncturing the air with a heavy thud.
Iron stands alone by the fountain, letting out a long and weary, dejected sigh. A close-up profile of Iron shows her looking down with a somber and troubled expression. A floating thought bubble questions why she is doing something so embarrassing in the garden.
A flashback reveals a black-haired girl in a school uniform looking deeply depressed and weary.
Boys at a school mock the black-haired girl, expressing shame at being related to her. A woman's voice discusses rising house prices while the girl stands alone in the shows. The mother justifies her favoritism, claiming the house was a reward for giving birth to sons. The woman plans to send her sons to top schools and the girl to a dormitory.
Narration describes the plight of the family's ugly duckling, who is ignored by the powerful.
The black-haired girl stands alone in a family portrait where everyone else is shadowed and distant. Text explains how everyone in the family ignored her and blamed her for every accident. The girl sits alone on a swing, crying over the constant blame and total neglect. A close-up of a clenched fist shows the girl's hidden pain and silent resentment.
Short text reflects on the girl's past misery as the dark scene begins to fade.
Iron snaps back to the present, a single tear beginning to fall from her eye. A small white cat appears and meows, catching Iron's attention in the quiet garden. Iron crouches down and softly asks the friendly cat if it wants to be her friend. Iron gently strokes the cat's head, asking if it visits the garden area very often.
Iron worries about being scolded for throwing stones and having to pay compensation to the boys.
Iron asks the cat to live with her, promising to treat the animal very well. The cat suddenly turns its head away, surprising Iron with its abrupt and quick movement. Iron looks on in shock as the cat quickly runs away from her into the bushes. Iron crosses her arms and looks dejected, feeling rejected by even the small garden cat.
The cat returns with a group of kittens, surprising the girl with its fluffy, tiny family.
Iron reacts with surprise as she discovers the stray cat actually has its own family.
The mother cat shows affection by gently licking her happy white kitten in the sunlight.
Iron watches the cats, thinking about how friendly and sweet everyone in the garden is.
Overcome by a sudden wave of embarrassment, Iron hides her face while dwelling on her actions.
A small, energetic kitten trots toward Iron's feet, letting out a cheerful and friendly meow.
Iron smiles warmly, finding comfort and joy in her brief interaction with the small garden cat.
Deciding she is grown up, Iron says goodbye to the cat to go find some pudding.
While Iron walks away tiredly, Erno Atom watches her from a window high in the mansion.
Leaning against the window frame, Erno Atom smiles to himself while calling Iron a funny girl.
Iron looks down as a voice mocks her for never receiving a proper home education before.
Erno recalls Iron dropping a boulder on bullies, admitting he did not expect such a reaction.
Erno reflects on his curiosity after seeing the orphanage list before encountering Iron in the library. Narration notes that many people desperately try to hold on to their status within the Etham family.
A young child leaving the family home is considered unthinkable for anyone born into the household. Erno watches Iron in the library, his gaze following the young girl as she approaches him. Erno Edom carefully removes a ring from his finger, his movements precise and filled with intent. As Erno walks away, Iron notices something small and metallic fall and bounce on the floor. A close-up shows the small ring clattering onto the wooden floorboards with a sharp, clear sound. Erno waits by the door thinking that everything would have ended if she ignored the ring. Young Iron offers the ring back, explaining she found it under a shelf and cleaned it. Iron beams with pure, innocent happiness after returning the lost item to the tall, dark-haired man. Erno holds the returned ring in his open palm, contemplating the child's honesty and unexpected actions. A close-up focuses on Erno's eye as he looks down at the ring and the girl. Erno feels a clear and powerful energy emanating from the ring Iron just returned to him. Erno laughs, noting that Iron wanted to leave despite possessing such a unique and powerful ability. Iron looks dejected, her golden eyes downcast as she reflects on her current, difficult social situation. Erno grips the ring, stating that those who fail to educate their children must pay for it. An official announcement echoes across the grand mansion that the New Year's party will now resume. The Etham family crest is displayed as guests confirm their attendance and prepare for the festivities. Iron stands alone in a formal blue dress, looking small yet determined amidst the grand decorations. Muriel demands to know why Iron is leaving while she mentions the secret of her birth. Morel dares her to speak her mind, his expression challenging the young girl's resolve and claims. Iron stammers, struggling to find the right words to address the formidable Duke and the gathered guests. The guests watch with intense anticipation, likening the drama to a highly anticipated and exciting television show. Flashbacks show Iron gathering coins and jewels as she fully prepares to escape the mansion's walls. Iron addresses the Duke as her grandfather, claiming that she is actually the dark-haired man's daughter. Iron reacts in shock as Erno Etam suddenly appears behind her, questioning the young girl's bold statement. Erno Etam stands tall, suggesting that the situation needs to be explained correctly to the gathered crowd. Erno Etam offers a charming and handsome smile, though his eyes remain sharp and filled with mystery. Iron looks up at Erno in complete confusion, her mind reeling from his sudden and unexpected appearance. Iron falls into a state of absolute terror, wondering if she will survive until the next morning.
Narration describes Erno Etam as a terrible hedonist according to the original story in the novel.
Erno is known for doing exactly what he wants and taking whatever he desires without any hesitation. The narration warns of the consequences that follow once Erno grows bored of his current interests. Images of broken chess pieces represent the destruction Erno leaves behind when he is finished playing. The text explains that Erno will break something completely so that nobody else can ever possess it. Iron decides that avoiding Erno is the best way to ensure her own safety and easy life. Iron flinches as she realizes her plan to avoid him has already failed in a major way. Erno looks down at Iron with a pleasant but unsettling smile that causes her to freeze up. Iron stares at Erno in utter disbelief, her mouth hanging open as she processes his next words. Tense silence fills the hall as Erno, Etam, and Iron face the Duke on his throne. The gray-haired man orders Erno Etam to stop making bad jokes and step down immediately. Erno Etam laughs, mockingly asking when he ever bothered to look for a proper seat. Erno claims he is watching his daughter, while Iron internally denies being related to him. Iron questions why he is lying as she plans to reveal her secret and leave. Caught between two monsters, the pink-haired girl feels like she does not fit into this world. Erno Etam tells the Duke that if he is not believed, he has another plan. Erno Etam suggests that the Duke should simply ask his daughter to confirm the truth. Iron reacts with absolute shock as her internal lizard representation screams out in sheer panic. Erno Etam whispers that the Duke is just like that, while Aaron considers him shameless. Erno Etam asks Iron to tell the Duke directly who he is to her now. Sweating and blushing, Iron stammers as she struggles to find the words under intense pressure. A close-up focusing on Erno Etam's glowing eyes shows him watching the girl's every move. Iron's eyes reflect her mounting anxiety as she prepares to lie to the entire room. Iron declares he is her father while the Duke screams that the claim is ridiculous. Accusing Erno, the Duke points out that he brings a different child to every party. The pink-haired girl looks dejected, her golden eyes fixed on nothing as the shouting continues. Gossip that the boy brought last year was kicked out after only 4 months. Iron realizes everyone is used to Erno's antics and is simply enjoying the dramatic show. The girl's eyes light up as a new, more profitable thought occurs to her mind. A text box explains that in the original story, he treated people like chess pieces. Erno Atom plays with chess pieces, illustrating his past of treating relationships with total indifference.
Narration describes how Erno maintained purely business-like relationships based on necessity in the original novel.
A blonde woman watches Iron with pity, expressing that she feels sorry for the child. Gossip reveals that discarded victims are given enough money to buy an island when they leave. The noblewoman assumes the girl will make a fuss about her relationship with the family. Iron's eyes sparkle with greed as she realizes being a victim is actually totally sweet.
Text boxes show Iron's calculation of spending her last years happily on her own island.
Chibi Erin celebrates her happy future on a private island with a house and animals.
Swallowing her fear, the girl prepares to play along with the man she previously avoided.
Erno Atom asks if the Duke would change his successor if he felt things were unfair. Iron stares at the black-haired man, noticing his calm, pleasant, yet deeply unsettling permanent smile. A close-up of Erno Atom shows the intense, burning glow within his orange and yellow eyes.
The man's hand moves toward the girl, a gesture that feels both protective and deeply ominous.
Text bubbles describe his promise to be a good father to the long-lost reunited daughter. Erno Atom lifts Iron up high, presenting his new daughter to the shocked and whispering crowd.
The Duke shakes with rage, shouting about the survival of kids who aren't even good.
Holding Iron, Erno Atom tells the Duke to stop shouting because it is scaring her. A thought bubble expresses Iron's protest that she is not actually afraid of her grandfather. Erno Atom tells Iron that her father will protect her, so she has no fear. Panicking, Iron shouts that she is not afraid and claims that her grandpa is cool. Surrounded by flowers, Iron looks at the Duke and pleads with him not to be angry. The Duke stares in blank surprise at the girl, his anger momentarily stalled by her request. The Duke insists he was never angry, while the boys whisper that he is still furious. A detail shows the Duke's cape fluttering as he turns away to end the party. The Duke announces the party's end and orders the separate plan brought to his room. As he walks away, the Duke tells the others he will see them all later on.
The boys tease the Duke about his anger while he continues to grumble to himself.
Erno Atom looks down at Iron and gently suggests that they should also head back. Iron looks up at Erno Atom with wide eyes and softly agrees to go back. Narration explains that Iron became Erno's fake daughter following the end of the New Year's party. Iron asks why Erno is carrying her so far despite his supposed dislike for physical contact. Expecting to be discarded, the pink-haired girl assumes the man is just entertaining himself for now. Iron notices that the black-haired man walks carefully to ensure she remains steady and comfortable. Erno holds the young girl gently, his expression softening into a rare moment of apparent tenderness. Watching him, Iron thinks his unexpected kindness is likely why others were always drawn to him.
Narration describes Iron as a temporary toy for Erno, represented by a piece on a chessboard.
Iron resolves to remain quiet and leave once the man's current game of interest finally ends. The pink-haired girl reminds herself to stay cautious and keep her true feelings hidden away. Remembering her past suffering, Iron reflects that avoiding expectations is the only way to prevent pain. A close-up focuses on Iron's determined golden eyes as she steels her heart against the man. Clinging to Erno, the girl silently vows to expect nothing from this new, artificial familial arrangement. Erno smiles knowingly as the young girl buries her face against his formal blue attire.
Sunlight fills a grand bedroom where Erno sits beside the bed while Iron sleeps peacefully.
Awakening to the morning light, Iron is greeted warmly by Erno, who calls her his daughter. Erno gently pats Iron's head as she yawns, welcoming her to a new day in the mansion. Iron notes that Erno is present again today and acknowledges that he remains undeniably handsome. Flashbacks show the chaotic moment Erno presented Iron as his daughter to the shocked party guests. Erno brought Iron to his mansion and provided her with an enormous, beautifully prepared private room. Erno informs a sleepy Iron that she must wake up to eat the breakfast he prepared. Looking at the soup and bread, Iron internally complains that the portion size is far too much. Iron questions Erno's insistence on feeding her, feeling the burden of her mature soul's secret. Despite her initial protests, Iron finds the food delicious, while Erno watches her eat with satisfaction. Erno leans forward and asks his daughter if there is anything specific she desires for the day. Iron realizes he asks this daily and considers whether she should mention her interest in buying gifts. A maid smiles cheerfully as the narration mentions Ernos' promise to bring a girl named Mila soon. Iron pauses her meal and prepares to reveal her actual request to the black-haired man. Erno asks for clarification when Iron suddenly requests that he open a bank account for her. Iron explains the concept of a bank account, noting its differences from the modern world system. Narration explains that accounts in this world use magic and barriers instead of traditional paper passbooks. High-level magic protects the world's safest safes, ensuring that only the rightful owner can access them. Iron observes that Erno's current kindness is so immense he might even try to gift her stars. A moment of quiet reflection passes as the scene shifts to focus on Iron's internal thoughts.
Recalling her past life, Iron reflects on the many instances of false affection she once endured. Erno asks if she wants money, while Iron thinks he is only pretending to care for her.
Iron insists she just wants to raise money, though she avoids asking him for it directly.
Narration depicts Erno and his affectionate daughter on a stage, calling their relationship just a play.
Iron prepares herself to wait for the day she will inevitably be kicked out of the family.
Iron worries about becoming a walking target for thieves if she carries only cash after leaving.
Erno touches his chin thoughtfully while Iron looks up at him with pleading, sparkling eyes. Iron clasps her hands together in prayer, hoping the man will agree to her financial request. Erno smiles darkly, realizing that his supposed daughter is already plotting her eventual escape from him.
Erno stands up and reassures Iron that creating a bank account for her is not difficult.
Iron looks up in wide-eyed wonder as Erno reaches out a hand to guide her. Surrounded by flowers, Erno offers his hand to Iron with a charming and pleasant smile.
The scene shifts to a bustling market square where townspeople gather under a clear blue sky.
Iron runs through the town in excitement, wearing a new dress and a matching bonnet.
Iron marvels at the famous furniture shop while Erno follows behind her during their outing. Erno points toward a nearby toy store and asks the young girl if she would like to go.
Iron declines the offer, stating she never played with toys and prefers a well-funded bank account.
Narration notes that indifferent parents rarely buy toys, a luxury Iron never expected to enjoy.
Iron reflects on her lack of experience with toys in both her past and current lives.
Erno Etom hums thoughtfully while observing the young girl, a faint, calculating smile on his face. The black-haired man suddenly lifts Iron, his expression remaining uncharacteristically calm and pleasant.
Erno carries the girl toward the entrance of a grand building as pedestrians watch them pass.
He bursts through the doors, making a dramatic entrance into a high-end furniture and toy boutique.
Erno compliments Iron's hair and expresses concern over her apparent lack of greed or material desire.
While the shopkeeper wonders who the prestigious guest is, Erno begins searching through his personal pouch. Erno tosses a heavy bag of currency to the startled shopkeeper, confirming his status as a customer.
Surrounded by a floral aura, the black-haired man flashes a charming and dangerously handsome smile. Erno demands every toy in the store for Iron, causing the girl to shout in protest. Iron insists she does not need so many items, but Erno tells her to discard them later.
He asks if she prefers to pick her own toys, while Iron questions how old he thinks she is.
Erno suggests buying the entire store instead, prompting a panicked Iron to agree to choose herself. Narration describes the store's magical inventory, featuring strange, captivating items that require physical interaction to appreciate. Distressed, Iron wishes she could have the equivalent cash value of 50 gold coins instead.
Erno leans in and asks his daughter if her preference is simply to purchase the shop.
Iron examines the shelf of useless toys and suddenly spots something that catches her eye. Her golden eyes sparkle with genuine interest as she discovers a stuffed animal on the shelf.
Iron holds up a stuffed tiger doll, proudly announcing that she has finally made her choice. Erno questions the single doll, but Iron enthusiastically promises she will never grow tired of it.
A close-up shows the stuffed tiger wearing a small formal suit and a red bow tie.
Iron joyfully declares that the stuffed animal looks exactly like her father, much to Erno's surprise. Embracing the tiger doll happily, Iron is surrounded by flowers as she celebrates her new toy. Erno stares blankly while the shop employees are visibly moved to tears by the girl's affection.
Erno realizes Iron rejected everything else in favor of a toy that supposedly resembles his own appearance.
The pink-haired girl smiles inwardly, confident that her strategic display of affection has successfully moved him. Erno turns to the shopkeeper and asks how many of the specific tiger dolls remain in stock.
The shopkeeper excitedly explains that these are brand new products and the pair are the first buyers.
The man's gloved hand snaps his fingers, a gesture that signals the activation of his magic. Erno uses fire magic to incinerate the remaining dolls, stating he simply wants to get rid of them.
The shopkeeper is horrified as the display stand erupts in flames while Erno holds a stunned Iron.
Screaming about the fire, the shopkeeper watches in despair while Erno begins walking toward the exit. Erno throws another heavy bag of money at the man, telling him not to make a fuss. He explains the magical fire will only consume the dolls before vanishing as he exits the building. Erno looks back and warns the shopkeeper never to sell that specific type of doll again.
The shop staff are overwhelmed by the man's intense display of wealth and possessive fatherly sincerity.
As they leave, the employees bow deeply and express their profound gratitude for Erno's massive payment. Erno looks down and notes that Iron is now the sole owner of the tiger doll design. He asks if she is happy, leaving Iron sweating and terrified by his extreme and possessive methods. Iron forces a polite response to her father while the staff continue their frantic thanks behind them. A beautifully decorated jelly dessert is presented as Erno encourages his daughter to take a bite. Iron opens her mouth wide and accepts a spoonful of the sweet treat offered by her father. Erno watches with a satisfied smile as Iron confirms that the dessert is indeed very delicious. Iron questions why she must eat in this tense atmosphere while Duke Morel watches from the head. Narration explains that the Etam family conducts formal meetings twice every week to manage their affairs. The family crest is shown, representing their leadership in the Empire's most significant and massive military projects. Text boxes detail the wide variety of businesses and industries managed by the powerful Etam family. At the shipyard, magicians and laborers coordinate cargo while the family discusses their various business projects. Duke Morel presides over a high-stakes meeting where even the sound of breathing is considered a risk. Someone in the meeting room shouts the black-haired man's full name, Erno Etam, quite loudly. A powerful fist slams onto the table, creating a shockwave that rattles the entire formal meeting hall. Erno notes he is participating in the meeting during his daughter's snack time, annoying the others. Duke Morel looks stressed as Iron politely announces she has decided not to eat her pudding. Surrounded by flowers, Iron looks up with pleading eyes and asks the men not to scold her. A sparkle of intense affection enters Duke Morel's eyes as he stares at the adorable girl. The older man softens, telling her it doesn't matter and she can eat as much as desired. Erno continues feeding Iron while the older man grumbles that his son is the biggest problem. Iron opens her mouth wide and focuses on the delicious treat being offered by her father. Radiating joy and surrounded by floral patterns, the girl savors the sweet treat with closed eyes. The sight of the happy girl moves Duke Morel and the nearby staff to blushing admiration. The meeting shifts focus to business as a member asks about weapon exports planned for Cardos. The discussion turns to the extreme scarcity of materials, specifically a resource known as floating stone. Erno rests his gloved hand on Iron's shoulder, maintaining his protective presence during the formal proceedings. Ernest's expression turns dark and terrifying as the members report declining performance and limited resource quantities. A member complains of physical discomfort before shifting the conversation toward the ongoing search for mines. While the attendees are visibly panicked by the tense atmosphere, Erno calmly continues feeding his daughter. Iron freezes mid-bite as the mention of a floating stone triggers a memory from her past. Narration explains the floating stone is a sky-bound mineral essential to the plot of the novel. A flashback reveals that the original story's heroine was destined to discover the hidden mine entrance. The narration identifies the location of the legendary mine as the mountain behind the Etam estate. Reflections on the heroine's immense luck appear as the scene shows her looking blissful and bright. Iron realizes that her knowledge of the novel gives her an advantage in her self-rescue plans. She resolves to take action to survive Erno's whims, apologizing internally to the future heroine. Iron looks up at Erno and curiously asks him to define what a floating stone is. Erno explains the stone is technically useless except for making military weapons significantly lighter during transport. Iron realizes the men are unaware that this stone will eventually spark a massive technological revolution. Duke Morel looks thoughtful as he mentions having personally witnessed a stone flying in the sky. Overwhelmed by sudden realization, the older man shouts in shock while slamming his hand down again. The massive stone table cracks and splits entirely in half, scattering papers and shocking the attendees. Emanating a dark aura, Duke Morel demands immediate confirmation regarding the sighting of the flying stone. Iron trembles in Erno's lap, marveling at the destructive physical power of their family's dragon bloodline. A panicked official rushes toward Iron, desperately begging her to reveal where she saw the stone. The meeting attendees crowd around the young girl, urgently questioning her about the specific mountain range. The room descends into chaos as the members scramble around the broken table in a panic. Erno glares at the officials, warning them to maintain a respectful distance from his young daughter. Duke Morel shoves an official aside, his focus entirely on Iron as he seeks the location. The older man stands before Erno and Iron, demanding to know the exact whereabouts of the stone. Iron points toward the window and clearly identifies the mountain at the back of the residence. Duke Morel seeks further clarification, staring intensely at the young girl as she reveals the secret. A close-up shows Iron pointing through the grand window toward the sunlit mountain in the distance. Iron confirms there is a floating stone mine located in the mountains behind the Duke's residence. The officials express utter disbelief, noting they never imagined such a valuable resource was so close. Duke Morel orders his subordinates to immediately investigate the area and verify the young girl's claim. Iron watches the bustling crowd from the safety of Erno's arms, sensing the weight of her revelation.
A thought bubble appears, noting that the situation has become very interesting for the Etam family.
Erno leans in with a calculating smile and asks his daughter how she possesses such knowledge.
He gently pats Erin's head while she looks up at him with wide, startled golden eyes.
Duke Morel asks why everyone is making such a fuss as the investigation begins to move. The dark-haired official whispers something into the ear of the focused and serious Duke Morel. Duke Morel looks down, musing that the child's daughter is in such an unexpected place. Duke Morel announces the meeting's conclusion, leaving the officials to disperse within the Grand Hall. Iron notices the staff whispering about the Duke's poor mood and the shattered stone table.
A vision of the novel's original heroine appears, radiating beauty and a bright, charming smile.
Chibi Iron looks utterly distressed, worrying about the eventual arrival of the story's true female lead. The young girl worries she will be forgotten and replaced once the original heroine appears.
Iron remains pensive while a thought bubble notes Erno is unaware of her inner turmoil.
Erno carries his daughter out, noting the late hour as the busy meeting finally concludes. Stepping over debris, Erno mentions he has someone important to introduce to Iron tomorrow morning. Erno gives a cryptic, satisfied smile, promising his daughter she will discover the identity soon.
Iron forcibly laughs, masking her intense curiosity about who her father intends for her to meet.
The night sky is dominated by a bright full moon, signaling a shift in the timeline.
Thick, dark foliage sways under the moonlight, emphasizing the quiet and peaceful atmosphere of the night.
In her bedroom, Erno asks Iron if she enjoyed her dessert before she goes to sleep.
Erno promises to provide anything she desires, encouraging her to speak up whenever she wants something.
Iron reflects on her role as an extra, believing her time in the spotlight is temporary. Erno bids his daughter a sweet night, confident that all his current plans are successfully finished. Iron smiles warmly at her father, wishing him a good night as he gently pats her. Iron imagines a future where the original heroine takes her place, leaving her standing alone. Looking up at a grand building, Iron questions if such a massive mansion truly belongs to her. Erno explains that dozens of staff members are dedicated solely to serving Iron in her home. A hand presents Iron with a massive check for 100 million gold as a promise. Erno smiles darkly, confirming he has delivered the massive sum of gold he promised to her. The atmosphere shifts to cold rejection as Erno harshly orders someone to leave his presence. An imposing shadow looms over a small clawed hand, marking a terrifying turn in the vision. A thought bubble expresses deep regret over not realizing someone's true reptilian nature much sooner. A small pink lizard with Iron's features is kicked out into the dark, cold night. A jagged speech bubble screams, "No!" as the nightmare reaches its terrifying and sudden conclusion. Iron jolts awake in her dark bedroom, gasping for air after the vivid, frightening dream. Trembling with sweat, Iron recalls that Erno's hatred for reptiles is a fundamental truth in the novel. Iron stares out the window at the moon, contemplating her survival in this dangerous family dynamic. The brown-haired maid blushes with joy, clearly enamored by how adorable her young lady looks. Iron is dressed in a magnificent, frilly yellow gown adorned with flowers and delicate ribbons. The maid excitedly asks if the dress is suitable, and Iron confirms she likes the outfit. The maid cheers for Iron's beauty, while Iron notes the servant's increased motivation at the mansion. A sudden knock at the door causes Iron to look back with a startled, curious expression. Though the maid Mela offers to handle the visitor, Iron decides to greet them herself. Grabbing her tiger doll, Iron wonders if her father has arrived early for their planned introduction. Iron opens the door with a radiant welcome, but her expression quickly shifts to one of surprise. Two young boys stand outside. The red-haired one asks his companion if she is the right girl. Iron stands frozen in shock, her golden eyes wide as she processes the unexpected visitors' identities. The red-haired boy apologizing, explaining their father suddenly ordered them to fetch his daughter right away. Narration describes the black-haired boy as a calm, talented swordsman who shares a similar personality with Erno. The red-haired boy urges Iron to follow them quickly since their father is currently waiting. Iron hurries down the hallway, struggling to keep up with the long strides of the two boys. Reflecting on her nightmare, Iron realizes the dream correctly identified Erno's deep-seated hatred for all reptiles. Text highlights that Erno's disdain for reptiles was a recurring and significant fact in the original story. Iron worries about the inevitable day her true nature as a lizard beast is finally discovered. Imagining herself as canned food, Iron shudders with fear while clutching her stuffed tiger very tightly. Iron runs through the bright hallway, complaining that the two boys are walking at an impossible speed. Iron tries to keep pace with her older brothers as they walk down the hall. The two boys stop and glare back, questioning why the young girl is following them. Callian mocks Iron's intelligence while accusing her of glaring at them with her large eyes. Cillian looks down with a dark smile, expressing pity for their parents for having a daughter. Iron remains silent and downtrodden, her head bowed as she processes her brother's harsh words. Struggling to keep up, Iron stops walking and suggests that her brothers go on ahead. Cillian abruptly calls out to her, causing the young girl to look up in startled anticipation. A hand reaches toward Iron's head, prompting a soft gasp of fear from the girl. Iron flinches and closes her eyes, terrified that her brother is about to strike her. Cillian gently pats her head, asking why she was foolishly following without saying a word. Cillian reaches down to retrieve the doll while calling out to Callian to wait up. Callian offers to carry Iron despite her protest that she is too heavy for him. Cillian tells Iron the outfit is suitable for her and urges the group to hurry. Callian carries Iron on his back while reflecting on the small size of his younger sister. Cillian walks ahead holding Iron's tiger doll while Callian continues to carry the young girl. Cillian warns Iron not to get too attached to their father, who often plays pranks. Callian looks back over his shoulder, advising Iron to be careful not to get hurt. Iron watches her brothers, realizing that Callian is surprisingly kind and she has nothing to fear. The group arrives at the dining hall doors where Callian announces they have finally arrived. Iron steps down onto the floor, ready to greet her father as the brothers look on. Iron strikes a playful pose, musing to herself that she also possesses a very important secret. The two brothers stare at Iron with focused, glowing golden eyes as she prepares to enter. The large doors creak open, revealing the bright and elegant room where Erno is waiting. Cillian calls out to his father, who sits regally at a table set for a meal.
Erno asks if she slept well, and Iron runs toward him, shouting that she missed him.
Erno pulls Iron into a warm hug, praising the boys for bringing her ham. Erno notices the boys standing stiffly in the background and looks at them with curious suspicion. Erno asks what happened to his daughter, and the boys quickly reply that nothing is wrong. Over breakfast, Erno mentions hearing that the head of the household is suddenly vacating the mansion. Erno explains that the Duke likely left because it seems he found his sister's lost daughter. Cillian asks if the investigation involves the old aunt who famously ran away from home years ago. Erno playfully pinches Iron's soft cheeks while she clutches her stuffed doll with a tiny smile. Erno asks Iron if she likes her new doll, and she happily confirms that it is cute. Iron mentions the doll is soft and warm, promising to sleep right next to it tonight. Erno holds Iron close, the two of them sharing a moment of genuine affection and joy. Erno's expression suddenly shifts to one of grim focus as a dark aura begins to emanate. A mysterious red energy begins to crackle around Erno's hand as he clenches his fist tightly. The magical containment ring on Erno's finger shatters under the pressure of his surging volatile power. Iron's doll falls to the floor as Erno groans in intense physical pain from the transformation. Erno desperately orders Callian to take Iron and run far away from this room immediately. Iron sits on the ground in shock, staring at the shattered remains of the table and debris. A dark thought bubble appears as Iron realizes she completely forgot a critical detail about him. Callian grabs Iron and shouts for them to flee as Erno collapses, losing all self-control. Narration explains that the Etam family occasionally experiences runaway magical powers that trigger murderous urges. The silhouette of a dragon looms behind Erno as the uncontrollable berserk state takes complete hold. The room falls into chaos as the children huddle together while Erno writhes on the carpet.
Erno lets out a pained groan, his body trembling as he fights the urge to kill.
A narrative box notes that this terrifying turn of events was completely unexpected for the girl. Iron realizes this berserk episode is a plot point she previously read in the original novel. Text confirms that Erno Etam occasionally loses all sanity and enters a violent, uncontrollable berserk state. A narrative box explains that even magical suppression accessories cannot always contain the family's volatile power. Recalling the original novel, Iron remembers a peaceful family meal that ended in a bloody massacre. Erno suddenly went berserk and slaughtered dozens of his own servants. Following the tragedy, Duke Morel placed Erno on a long period of mandatory probation and isolation. During this confinement, Erno truly earned his reputation as the most terrifying monster of the Etam family. A dark realization dawns as Iron understands that today is the day of that horrific incident. Callian orders Cillian to spread evacuation news while he takes Iron, and Cillian agrees with the wording. Watching Erno writhe in agony on the floor, Iron notes how incredibly painful his transformation looks. Iron desperately searches her mind for a solution, convinced there must be a way to help him. A text box appears as Iron wonders if her mother possessed any prior knowledge of this condition. Iron thinks about a warm place where a specific plant might be growing as a secret gift. Narration describes a plant that thrives as a protective blanket within the deepest shade of the grounds. A simple text box confirms that the special fruit has finally developed and is ready for use. The red-haired man holds a vial, explaining they found medicine to calm the berserk state. A close-up highlights Iron's wide, golden eye as she experiences a sudden moment of intense clarity. Iron apologizes to Callian, leaving him confused and startled as she prepares to run. Callian shouts in surprise as Iron suddenly breaks away and begins sprinting down the long hallway.
Iron bursts through the grand double doors while someone calls her name with a worried shout. Running with all her might, Iron worries that her father's probation would ruin her comfortable life. Visions of gold coins and luxury flash through her mind as she fears losing her wealth. Iron cries as she imagines her world shattering, terrified that her dream of luxury is ending. A narrative bubble compares her current life to a dreamlike play that will end too soon. Iron's expression hardens with determination as she focuses on the task required to save her future.
Arriving at the greenhouse, Iron spots the target of her search and confirms she has found it.
A caption identifies a large, lush tree filled with clusters of small, vibrant red berries. A bright, fading light fills the screen as Iron approaches the tree in the quiet greenhouse.
Cillian and Callian admit they were foolish not to realize the solution was so nearby.
A text box conveys Iron's surprise that the cure was located within her father's own greenhouse.
The narration explains the tree bears fruit year-round because the greenhouse is kept in perpetual summer.
Iron reaches toward the trunk, speculating that her mother might have known about the plant's properties.
A thought box suggests that her mother was perhaps trying to leave behind a final gift.
A hand reaches out to touch the rough bark of the tree beneath the hanging fruit.
A text box reveals that these berries are the key ingredient in sedative drugs for berserk.
Iron quickly pulls out a small brown drawstring pouch as she prepares to gather the fruit.
Opening the bag, Iron looks at the gold coins inside and realizes she needs to make room.
Iron dumps her gold coins, promising herself she will return to find them later.
Irene reminds herself to be extremely careful due to the many thorns on the tree.
Iron lets out a small cry after being pricked while attempting to pick the fruit.
Iron stares at the glowing fruit in her hand, remaining silent as she processes her next move.
Looking upward with a concerned face, Iron prepares herself for the dangerous task that lies ahead. Clusters of berries and gold coins lie scattered on the green grass at the base tree.
Iron holds the pouch, which is now filled to the brim with the harvested red berries.
Iron decides to go ahead and feed the gathered berries to her struggling father.
Iron runs across the lawn, clutching the pouch tightly as she hurries toward the mansion.
Focusing on the path ahead, Iron continues her frantic sprint to reach Erno in time.
Iron reacts with horror as a sudden, pained scream echoes from the distance.
The servant gasps for air as the berserk Erno chokes him with a powerful hand.
The servant begs for someone to save him while Erno lifts him by the neck. Iron shouts for her father as she enters the room to find him in chaos. The berserk Erno laughs maniacally while the terrified girl watches the violent scene unfold.
Iron lets out a soft gasp as a massive, dark hand reaches toward her.
Iron clenches her pouch, thinking that Erno is the one suffering the most right now.
A group looms over a lonely girl, illustrating the most miserable and shabby of circumstances.
The man walks away while an oppressive, dark aura begins to manifest behind his back.
The tiger doll lies discarded on the floor amidst the shattered remains of fine porcelain.
Callian bursts through the doors, shouting and frantically asking where Iron is done. The berserk Erno lifts Iron into the air as Callian's voice screams her name. Erno grips Iron by the throat while she stares back at him with terrified eyes. A massive hand clamps down on Iron's face as she winces in pain and fear. Iron desperately attempts to force the handful of red berries into her father's mouth. A close-up shows Iron crushing the medicinal fruit against the berserk man's tightly shut lips.
With a determined effort, Iron shoves the berries into Erno's mouth to end the madness. Erno bites down on the fruit, causing red juice to spray as he reacts violently. Iron pins Erno to the ground, thinking that now is her only chance to succeed.
Iron's small shoe digs into the carpet as she uses all her strength for leverage. The struggle ends as Iron lies across her father's chest on the messy dining floor.
Erno groans in agony while Iron holds his face, waiting for the berries to work.
A lone hand lies still on the floor, the dark, magical aura finally beginning to dissipate.
Iron sits atop her father, looking down at him as the room remains in shambles. Iron frantically gathers the spilled berries, thinking that she is terrified of people being angry. Tears fill Iron's eyes as she realizes she never wants to see this sight again. Erno's large hand gently covers Iron's small one as she holds the last few berries. Erno looks up and calls Iron's name, his eyes returning to their normal, weary state. Erno offers a gentle, exhausted smile, though his face is still stained with red juice. Iron stares down at her father with an expression of pure, wide-eyed shock and relief.
A close-up captures the lingering fear and sadness in Iron's large, shimmering golden eyes.
Iron tells her father not to be angry anymore because she is very scared. Erno pulls Iron into a warm, protective embrace, holding his daughter close to his chest.
Erno tells Iron to be quiet and calm down as they lie among flower petals.
A single tear rolls down Iron's cheek as she finally feels safe in her father's arms. Iron's exhaustion and her lingering concern for the tiger doll her father gave her.
The tiger doll sits on the floor as Iron wonders if it was permanently broken.
Iron thinks that she must check on the doll as soon as she is able.
A narrative box explains that children offer parents endless affection, no matter how scary they are.
Thought bubbles dismiss a cynical point of view, noting that a child's love remains constant.
In a flashback, Dahlia tells Erno to listen to her because children see the best side. Erno calls Dahlia an ideal romanticist while he sits and reads a book by her bed.
Dahlia says a daughter is best, but Erno notes 3 children are already quite enough.
Dahlia tells Erno he will eventually learn there are people in the world worth loving unconditionally. Dahlia smiles beautifully, her vibrant red hair standing out against a backdrop of soft pink roses. A thought bubble expresses the heartfelt wish that Erno will never have to be lonely again.
Erno sits quietly by Dahlia's side in their sun-drenched bedroom while he continues to read.
A formal, framed portrait depicts Erno and Dahlia standing together in their finest regal attire. Narration reveals the tragic reason for Erno's loneliness is that his wife passed away before him. Callian runs into the ruined hall, shouting to ask if his father is truly all right. Erno gently wipes a smudge from the sleeping Iron's face as he holds her securely. A text box confirms that Iron fortunately escaped the violent incident without any serious injuries.
A massive, jagged speech bubble contains a piercing, elongated scream of pure, unadulterated shock. A maid stands frozen in the doorway as Erno and Callian look back at her.
Callian demands to know how she dares disrespect his father while the maid offers a denial. Debris litters the floor of the room as a narration box notes that this is normal. A servant on the floor looks up in terror while text describes fear and prejudice.
Red-bordered text boxes explain that once the berserk state begins, only one solution remains.
A black dragon chess piece crushes a tiger doll amidst a radiant, explosive visual effect. Narration explains that an opponent stronger than the berserker must use force to subdue them. A text box notes that the family members capable of subduing the man were away.
Erno, engulfed in a dark aura, chokes a servant in the middle of the ruined room.
Iron walks steadily toward her berserk father, clutching the small pouch filled with berries.
Erno looks down with a blank expression, the dark shadows beginning to lift from his face.
The stuffed tiger doll lies torn and forgotten on the floor among broken ceramic shards. Erno carries the sleeping Iron as the broken tiger doll floats upward in a magical glow.
Large, scarred hands gently pick up the tattered doll as fluffy stuffing spills from its seams.
In a warm flashback, Iron smiles brightly while hugging her favorite tiger doll with love. Erno stares at the broken doll, his expression pained as he reflects on his daughter's affection. The black-haired boy peeks through the crack of a door with a look of intense concentration. A small chibi version of the black-haired boy appears shocked by the scene before him. Cillian asks about Iron's safety, and Erno reassures him that the ordeal is finally over.
A close-up shows the edge of a heavy wooden door being slowly and quietly pushed open.
Callian instructs the others to bring the red berries to his lab for further study. Cillian holds the bag of berries and tries to stop his brother for a moment.
Callian calls out a plea to Cillian as he quickly moves away from the room.
Cillian lets out a tired sigh, looking downward as he processes the weight of the day. The two boys walk through a grand, sunlit, cathedral-like hallway toward their next destination. Callian asks his father if the fruit was the key to stopping the berserk transformation. Carrying Iron, Cillian agrees that the berries seem to have been the effective care.
Cillian looks down at his sleeping sister, wondering how she could have known the solution.
Erno suggests that Iron has many secrets as they continue walking together through the hall. A floating text bubble asks why a certain prank cannot simply be ended right now. Cillian mentions feeling sorry for Iron and reminds the others about a contract signed last year. Callian notes that things are different with this child compared to their previous experiences. Callian shouts that the child took a massive risk specifically to save their father. A dark, circular speech bubble sternly calls out Callian's name to silence his outburst. A menacing warning appears against a floral background, telling the listener not to make them repeat themselves. Erno looks away with a cold, distant expression, his face shadowed by unspoken and heavy thoughts. Callian stands frozen with wide, startled eyes after being reprimanded by his father's stern tone.
Chibi heads of the boys appear while bubbles suggest a job well done and a departure.
Two maids attend to Iron in a massive bed, carefully tucking her in under heavy blankets. Erno watches from the shadows while a maid mentions leaving to retrieve some spare clothes. Erno walks away from the bedroom as the red-haired boy watches his father's retreating figure.
A close-up reveals Erno's exhausted face, marked by small scratches and a pensive, weary gaze. A hazy vision of a beautiful red-haired woman smiling softly appears like a distant memory.
Iron sleeps peacefully surrounded by pink flowers while a bubble confirms it must have been so. Glimmering lights and white petals float through a hazy gray space during a transition of time. Iron blinks her eyes open, seeing the blurred image of a grand chandelier hanging above her. A single word bubble appears in the darkness as Iron begins to regain her conscious mind. Looking up at the ornate ceiling, Iron weakly asks herself where she is currently located. Iron sits up in the large bed, looking small and confused in her lavender pajamas. Iron screams about her lost gold, startling the maid who shouts in surprise at her awakening.
The maid gasps with joy and relief, exclaiming that the young miss has finally woken up.
The maid explains Iron was unconscious for a week, leaving the girl completely stunned by the news.
Mela tearfully confirms Iron was comatose for a week and expresses her deep personal concern.
Mela asks about Iron's comfort while a narrative box notes a significant arrival has occurred.
The maid looks toward her young mistress with a questioning and slightly startled expression.
The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, sun-drenched estate where servants are working. A dark-haired girl interrupts two maids to ask for assistance in finding her way. Charney politely inquires about the location of the Duke's office while the maids look on. The maid provides directions to the second floor as Charney offers her thanks and departs. The maids admire Charney's appearance and speculate that she is the daughter of a princess. A peaceful transition displays white flowers and dark berries against a bright, shimmering background. Charney smiles brightly while wearing an elegant red dress adorned with intricate black lace details. A formal portrait introduces Charney Etum, depicted gracefully on a swing, surrounded by floral patterns. Narrative boxes describe a character with a sunny personality and the unique ability to banish madness. A shadowed man kneels before a young girl in a garden during a quiet flashback. Text explains that this child eventually managed to soften the cold and cruel heart of Erno. Narration notes that Erno initially intended to use the girl only for his own necessary purposes. The story describes how the family members began to bond over shared meals and time together. A group silhouette shows Erno and his sons gathered protectively around the young girl's throne. In the modern world, Cha Miso stares intently at her tablet screen with an envious expression. Cha Miso gazes at the fictional heroine and voices her deep desire to live that life. A dark narrative box marks the moment she realized her dreams were nothing but impossible fantasies. Cha Miso closes her digital screen, acknowledging that her idealized visions were merely painful illusions. A simple transitional text box leads into the harsh reality of her current daily life. An overhead view reveals Cha Miso slumped over her desk, exhausted by endless nighttime studies.
Mela serves soup to Iron while mentioning that the entire household was extremely worried for her.
Mela conveys the Duke's order to be informed immediately once his daughter finally regained consciousness. Iron asks about her father, but Mila tentatively reveals Erno has not visited in days. Mela suggests her father is merely busy as Iron looks on with a contemplative expression. Overheard rumors suggest the Duke plans to adopt the daughter of the recently deceased princess. Iron quietly acknowledges the news about the adoption while the maid watches her reaction closely. Mela feeds Iron soup and praises her for being a well-behaved child who eats without fussing. Mela wishes for a daughter as calm as Iron while the girl thanks her for the care. Mela expresses gratitude for her current luxury, prompting a confused question from the young Aaron. Mela gleefully explains that her raise and the joy of seeing Iron make her feel blessed. The maid's expression turns sinister as she demands secret obedience to her future instructions. Mela abruptly announces it is time to move and prepares Iron to leave the bedroom. A frilly pink dress is prepared as Mila asks if Iron is ready to see Erno. Iron enters the Duke's office, thanking the guards as she prepares for the looming confrontation. Dressed in her finest attire, Iron stands nervously in the center of the grand floral room. Iron hesitates at the door, reminding herself not to expect anything from this new life. A heavy wooden door creaks open slowly, revealing the scene inside the Duke's private study. Erno and Cillian stand with Charney as Iron enters the room for the formal meeting. Charney peeks shyly from behind Erno's coat as she observes the arrival of the pink-haired girl. Iron offers a bright, cheerful smile to hide her inner turmoil from the rest of the family. Erno welcomes Iron into the room, affectionately calling her by a soft and playful nickname. Cillian turns his head slightly, his expression hidden as he processes his sister's sudden entrance. Cillian remains silent, his back turned toward the viewer while the atmosphere in the room shifts. Iron smiles as she wonders if her brother is already interested in the newcomer's presence. Text bubbles reveal Erno's gratitude for a business tip regarding a floating stone that proved successful. Erno explains Iron's helpfulness to the others while she proudly confirms she aided her sick father. Erno looks at Iron with a stern gaze and asks if she understands the concept of payment. Erno explains that those who perform their duties well deserve to receive a fair reward. Erno offers to grant any wish, including business rights or the name of a direct descendant. Iron and Mela look on with wide-eyed shock at the Duke's incredibly generous offer. A thought bubble reveals Iron's choice is already quite obvious to her. Iron sprints toward her goal, thinking about the one thing she truly desires. Standing before the group, Iron shouts that the only thing she truly wants is money. Iron asks for 1 million roasts to be transferred directly into her bank account. A chibi version of Iron asks for a moment of patience during a brief interlude. Educational text explains that 1 million roasts is the equivalent of 1 million won.
Iron raises her arms in excitement, believing that 1 million will be more than enough.
Erno lets out a tired sigh, leaving the young girl confused by his sudden reaction. Erno touches a glowing green artifact, asking if her help was only worth that much. A close-up showcases a magnificent silver bracelet embedded with many brilliant green emeralds. Erno touches Iron's hand, stating that the value of her information is much higher. A system notification confirms a deposit of 100 million roasts into the girl's account. Iron clasps her hands together in prayer, thanking God for her incredible new fortune. Iron shouts her thanks to a grandfather, while Cillian calls her by a soft nickname. Cillian holds the girl and warns her that she should not eat random objects. A system notification displays a 100 million withdrawal, leaving the girl shocked and confused. Cillian continues his lecture while a chibi head of the Duke shouts a frustrated insult. Glowing light emanates from where the characters' hands meet, indicating a magical transaction. The system notification confirms a massive deposit of 1 billion roasts into her total balance. Iron stands frozen in shock as the digital confirmation of her immense wealth appears. Iron stares in awe at her brother as money rains down around his divine figure. A frustrated chibi version of the Duke shouts out his own name in total exasperation. Erno instructs Cillian to finish his tasks and begin the formal adoption process for Charney. Cillian smiles at Iron, mentioning he had already made his intentions clear to the dupe. A floating text bubble asks if the listener thinks this serious conversation is merely a game. Charney stands among blooming flowers, noted for her unique power to calm those in a berserk state. Cillian notes that parents never want their children hurt, regardless of their own personal flaws. While being carried away, Iron reflects that the story's ending was decided from the start. Erno watches them leave, telling the children to return to their rooms until dinner. Iron touches the wall, reassuring herself that she is okay now that she has money. A vision of Iron's past self appears, her eyes filled with unshed tears. Text boxes reveal that despite her success, she feels a small sense of sadness. Iron runs through the grand hallway, calling out to her maid to get her attention. Iron tells Mela she was dismissed early and managed to obtain a bit of pocket money. Iron announces she is going to nap while Mela offers to prepare her bed. The young girl insists she can handle her nap alone, declining the maid's help. With a tearful wave, Iron skips down the corridor and says goodbye to her maid. A maid watches from the window, reflecting on Iron's tastes before starting a secret mission. The scene shifts to the exterior of the annex building as evening begins. The camera pans through an empty corridor, emphasizing the quiet solitude of the afternoon. Iron peeks carefully around a corner to make sure that no one is watching her. Letting out a tired breath, Iron leans against a wall and questions her own actions. A close-up shows Iron's determined but weary expression as she stands in the hall. Narrative text identifies Iron as a minor character who is currently planning to run away. A small suitcase is filled with essentials, including books, clothes, and jars of candy. Iron crawls on the rug, carefully inspecting a collection of trinkets and coins she gathered. The pink-haired girl greets the guards while secretly planning to locate the last jewelry piece. Iron reflects on her successful evasion of the soldiers and prepares for her final task. Hiding behind a wall, Iron observes Mela running down the hallway with a suspicious package. Iron watches the maid from a distance and notes that she is carrying an object. The young girl confirms her suspicion that the departing maid is indeed hiding something important. Iron overhears instructions to search the first floor and reacts with a look of alarm. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Iron decides to quickly return to her private quarters. A narrative box reveals her deep anxiety regarding her potentially final dinner with her father. Iron is woken by a maid's voice announcing the start of a brand new morning. Mela explains that Erno stayed in his room yesterday and could not attend their dinner. Text boxes indicate that the Duke's absence was a result of necessary and specific circumstances. Mela informs the young girl that her father did not leave his room all day. A simple bubble confirms the situation as the scene transition continues into the morning light. Memory panels depict Iron waiting patiently in the annex until 9 o'clock before falling asleep. Narration notes the arrival of the female lead while Iron feels neglected by her family. The maid clarifies that the Duke is currently serving a period of formal house probation. Mela admits she lacks specific details, but mentions that the Duke was extremely upset recently. Iron realizes her father's absence was due to his situation rather than any personal dislike. Iron hits her own head, sternly reminding herself not to expect any affection or attention. Mela suggests taking a shower before attempting to visit her father in his private room. A sunlit, ornate window in the grand hallway stands silent as the day's activities begin. Iron waves a cheerful goodbye to the maid before heading off on her own mission. Iron peeks around a heavy wooden door, tentatively asking for permission to enter her father's office. Inside, Erno sits on a sofa holding hands with Charney in a glow of height. Iron apologizes for the intrusion and identifies the other girl as the story's main heroine. Erno smiles warmly and invites Iron to come closer, affectionately calling her his own daughter. An overhead view shows the girl hesitating at the door while the man welcomes her. Iron asks her father if the grandfather is currently harboring any anger toward him today.
Erno addresses the pink-haired girl and asks if she has ever witnessed a flaming sword.
Erno begins a countdown from 3, promising his daughter that she will see it soon. The grandfather bursts through the doors in a rage, loudly shouting Erno's full family name. The scarred man demands an explanation for why the family mine was placed under personal ownership. The angry grandfather brandishes a magnificent sword that is completely engulfed in bright, roaring flames. Iron watches in silent awe as she witnesses the legendary raging flames for the first time. Erno claims the mine was a gift, but the grandfather denies ever making such a promise.
A flashback reveals the grandfather telling Erno that a mountain would be his only inheritance. The dark-haired man insists the grandfather made the specific promise in his office years ago. The grandfather stares down at his flaming blade, speechless and frustrated by his son's claim. Shouting in annoyance, the grandfather demands that Erno return the mine and stop talking nonsense. A close-up showcases the dark-haired man's smug and satisfied smirk during the intense family confrontation. Standing amidst blooming flowers, Erno calmly instructs the other man to maintain his composure. The grandfather's expression shifts to pure shock as the atmosphere in the room changes abruptly. Erno politely asks the Lord to leave because he has private matters to discuss with Iron. The grandfather's protest is suddenly cut short as he is forcibly removed from the room's entrance. In the garden, a happy dog approaches the bewildered and sword-wielding grandfather from the bushes. A pack of dogs swarms the scarred man, jumping on him with tails wagging excitedly. The grandfather is pinned to the grass while a large dog licks his face with enthusiasm. A final frustrated shout of Erno's name echoes into the clear and peaceful afternoon sky. Erno tells his daughter that she arrived at the perfect time and should forget the noise. Erno presents a cat plushie, claiming it is his daughter's most precious and beloved treasure. Iron holds the plushie and notes that its fur is getting softer and softer. Iron thanks Erno and promises to carry the new gift with her much more. Chibi, Erno, and Sharn watch in silence as Iron laughs happily with her toy. Erno addresses Sharn as his daughter while she stares at Iron with a neutral gaze. Sharnay asks for permission to rub Iron's cheek because she finds her so cute. Iron enthusiastically gives Sharn permission to rub her cheeks for as long as she likes. Sharnay reaches out and pinches Iron's cheek, marveling at how soft the skin feels. Sharnay observes that the girl's cheeks are soft and fluffy like fresh milk bread. Sharn continues pinching Iron's cheeks while Erno watches them together from the sofa. Sharn's face is shown in profile as Iron realizes she may have misjudged her age. Iron is caught off guard when Sharn suddenly asks to be called her sister. Iron apologizes for assuming Sharn was older than her after the initial misunderstanding. Sharneen smiles brightly, appearing overjoyed at the prospect of being the older sibling. Sharn hugs Iron tightly and shouts about how incredibly cute her new little sister is. Sharn declares that Iron must call her sister since she is already 8 years old. Sharn hugs Iron, wishing her grandfather had told her about her cute sister much earlier. A text bubble expresses hope for their future relationship and asks to get along well. Erno watches the two girls interacting with a quiet and contemplative expression on his face. Iron reflects on the heroine's arrival and notes that the original story is still progressing. Iron believes she cannot interfere anymore because Sharn is destined to take her place. Iron observes that Erno's gaze has become different since the arrival of the original heroine. Iron dismisses her worrying thoughts as nonsense, assuming the heroine's arrival changes everything. Iron stares toward the window while pondering the true reason behind the household's shifts. Sharnay sits on a swing in the garden, identified as the world's main character. Silhouetted leaves transition the scene as Iron continues to reflect on the heroine's role. Sharnay plays a harmonica in the sunlight, surrounded by flowers and floating white feathers. A close-up focus highlights Sharn's brilliant yellow eyes as she looks toward the garden. Sharnay laughs brightly while holding her harmonica, appearing completely at peace in the garden. An elevated view of the mansion shows Sharnay sitting alone on the garden swing. A text bubble asks if the grandfather is currently with the girl in the garden. Iron notes that Sharn's purifying power was originally meant to calm their grandfather's rage. Sharneen prepares to feed Iron a piece of pudding during their afternoon tea time. Sharnay affectionately encourages Iron to open her mouth and try the sweet fruit dessert. Sharnay's cheerful feeding of Iron contrasts sharply with a vision of a stressed office worker. Iron accepts a bite of the pudding while Sharn watches her with visible delight. Sharn hugs Iron again, declaring that she looks incredibly cute while she is eating. A close-up of tea and a fork highlights Iron's relief at being here now. Sharnay admits she has felt worried and strange since arriving at this new house. Iron reassures Sharn that she will love the toys and food when she adapts. A close-up of Sharn's eye reflects a moment of sudden and serious internal realization. Sharnay confesses from across the table that she does not want to be anyone's daughter. Sharnay explains that she only came to the mansion because she required a legal guardian. A brief interlude of text marks a pause in their serious and private conversation.
Iron wonders if Sharn was always this way in the original version of the story. Narrative text notes that Sharn originally lacked any affection or apathy toward Erno. Iron questions if the timeline's early stage is responsible for the current character dynamics. A close-up of Iron's eye shows her focus as she reacts to Sharn's confession. Narrative text warns that the first major event will occur shortly after the heroine's arrival. A pedestal stands empty under a spotlight, signaling the theft of the dragon's relic. Text explains that the ancient relics of the clan directly choose their own worthy owners.
An ornate stained glass window illustrates the history of 3 legendary dragon relics passed down through generations.
A glowing sword wreathed in roaring flames is identified as the first relic belonging to Morel. The second relic is revealed to be a glowing blue earring fragment currently in Erno's possession. A shimmering, iridescent sphere resting on a cushion is named the third relic, the Dragon Ball. Narration highlights that the stolen object is Erno's second relic, the crucial balance fragment earring. A magical scale shows that the fragment is essential for stabilizing Erno's growing mental instability. Because of this relic, Duke Merrill can easily control and suppress Erno despite his arrogant nature.
Narrative boxes explain that solving this theft will ultimately bring Sharn and Erno much closer together.
Iron struggles to recall the identity of the specific criminal responsible for stealing the powerful relic. Despite having read the original novel multiple times, the girl is frustrated by her failing memory. Iron contemplates interfering but worries about stealing credit for a heroic moment destined for the heroine. Sharni notices her friend's distress and asks about her worries, but Iron dismisses her concerns. Reaching out to hold hands, Sharnine encourages her sister to be honest about any lingering troubles. Sharni expresses a deep sisterly bond and promises they will face all of their problems together. Iron laughs off the tension by claiming she was merely curious about the upcoming dinner menu.
The two young girls sit together at the ornate table while continuing their private conversation.
Sharni offers her sincere hope that her sister will never have to face any serious worries. A narrative box reveals Iron's long-standing desire to embody the traits of the story's main heroine. A memory depicts a tired girl slumped over her books, reflecting on her past life's perspective. Watching the story unfold on a screen, she admired how the original heroine received everyone's love.
Iron reflects on her genuine fondness for Sharn's kind and friendly personality toward everyone around her.
Iron suddenly grabs Sharna's hands and passionately vows to make her life even happier than before.
Sharni is momentarily stunned by the declaration, but feels a growing desire to surpass the original story. A bright and joyful smile lights up the girl's face as she reacts to the kind words. The pink-haired girl suddenly displays a fierce and determined expression, her eyes burning with inner fire. Floating chibi heads capture Sharn's immense gratitude and happiness following Iron's encouraging and protective promise. Iron urges Sharn to always seek her help whenever there is something she needs assistance with. The scene shifts to a darkened bedroom where a closet door stands open during the night. Narration reveals that luggage bags are hidden deep inside the closet for Iron's planned departure. Morning light begins to filter into the grand and silent chambers of the mansion's private quarters. Accessories are prepared for the day while a maid asks Iron if she has readied a gift. As she is being dressed, Iron expresses confusion regarding the specific gift the maid is mentioning. The maid explains that today marks Erno's birthday, news that catches the young girl completely off guard. While fitting Iron's shoes, the maid suggests that Erna's only daughter should be the first to gift him. A text box questions whether this specific birthday event ever existed within the original novel's plot. A single dark speech bubble calls out to the girl, shifting the atmosphere of the room. The maid continues her manipulation, claiming that a certain special gift will make Erno extremely happy. Smiling subtly, the maid clarifies that she is referring to the blue earrings Erno usually wears. Memories of previous suspicious encounters suddenly flash through Iron's mind as she listens to the maid. The maid claims that gathering these shards will prevent Erno from ever assuming a terrifying appearance again. Iron listens silently as the maid boasts about knowing the secret location of all the remaining shards. The maid promises that giving this gift will secure Iron's adoption over the rival candidate Sharn. Iron asks if following this plan will allow her to remain by Mela's side in the future. With a sinister and shadowy grin, the maid asks if the young girl will follow her request. The maid looms over the girl in the darkened room, waiting for her final decision and reaction. Surrounded by dark floral patterns, a narrative box prepares to reveal the true identity of the culprit. A dark bubble asks for the girl's feelings as the maid's true nature is finally exposed. The maid claps her hands in feigned delight, praising the girl for being such an obedient listener. Iron makes a defiant face and sticks her tongue out, flatly refusing to cooperate with the scheme. Iron rejects the maid's offer, stating her father believes stealing is a bad act and that she will pretend she didn't hear the request. A dark thought bubble anticipates the ominous and inevitable events that are about to unfold. Lying in bed,
Iron realizes with dread that the maid intends to reveal her secret identity as a beast woman.
The maid walks away confidently while Iron stares into the dark with glowing, fearful yellow eyes. The atmosphere shifts as quiet sparkles drift through the room, marking a narrative transition.
Smugly, the maid mentions Irene's original fate of transforming at a party and asks if her cocoa was delicious. A flashback depicts Irene holding a steaming cup of cocoa with a surprised and innocent expression. As she drinks the cocoa, Irene wonders if a sabotaging medicine was hidden within the warm drink.
Iron clenches her plushie, realizing she was deceived by the promise of effective medicine that was meant to help her. Darkness looms as a voice declares that everything is already far too late for the young girl to change. Iron lies motionless in bed as a door creaks open, signaling a late-night visitor to her room. Peeking through the curtains, the maid whispers a sinister warning that Iron will regret her earlier refusal to cooperate.
A sudden, loud noise echoes through the oppressive silence of the darkened mansion hallways.
Bright morning light streams through the window, signaling the arrival of a fateful and decisive new day. Iron reflects that despite her efforts, events are still proceeding exactly as they did in the original novel's plot. She recalls the scene where Sharon identifies the culprit, gaining Ernos' interest and favor through her heroic actions. Sharni appears determined, declaring that she found her purpose for staying at the mansion during the previous day. Under the covers, Iron sheds a tear as her yellow eye glows with quiet, internal sadness. Huddled in the dark, the young girl questions why her life always follows this tragic and inescapable path. On the night of the dragon, the Etam clan's blood and madness fall into a sleep that weakens their powers. Despite the weakening bloodline, the mansion's guards have been greatly enhanced for protection. A simple transition marks the passage of time as flowers bloom in the soft, fading light. At a social gathering, guests gossiped about how Mila cared for the child like a nanny despite appearances. Iron wonders if she should flee before a man approaches her with a polite and formal apology. A silver-haired man with glasses introduces himself as Kailo while standing amidst a garden of blue flowers. Kaio explains his sudden appearance and requests that the young girl accompany him somewhere immediately. Iron accepts that whatever is destined to happen will eventually come to pass regardless of her fears. Following Kailo, Iron prepares herself for the possibility that her beastman nature will finally be revealed to everyone. The young girl walks nervously through a crowd of onlookers in the mansion's grand and silent hall. Duke Morel sits sternly upon his golden throne, exuding an aura of absolute and intimidating authority. Iron and the maid stand at the base of the red stairs before the assembled clan leaders. Erno questions if she colluded with a mysterious man in black to steal his important balance fragment earrings. Stunned by the false accusation, Iron frantically wonders if she is truly being blamed for the theft. The maid fakes tears while Iron realizes she's being framed and mentally calls her a jerk for the betrayal. Morel demands to know the truth about the claim that she is a beastman as Iron remains silent. The Duke shouts for a final, honest answer regarding her true identity and the theft of the relic. Iron admits she is a beastman, but firmly denies any involvement in stealing the earrings from the mansion. Suddenly dizzy, Iron's vision blurs as she looks up at the figure standing on the high platform. Her head spins as she spots the maid wearing a triumphant and malicious smile behind her handkerchief. A heavy thud sounds as the young girl collapses onto the floor before the gathered crowd. Guests panic, shouting in confusion as the girl suddenly disappears from their sight after falling. An aristocratic woman points toward the floor, screaming that she has found where the girl went. Transformed into a small pink lizard, Iron stands on her own dress as someone screams in terror at the sight. The lizard scrambles away as the crowd erupts into a chaotic and fearful scramble across the hall. People jump and scream as the creature darts between their feet across the red carpet. Voices cry out that the small animal has escaped toward the other side of the room. A man attempts to stomp on the fleeing creature while others shout to step on it. A heavy shoe comes down forcefully, attempting to crush the small pink animal against the floor. The lizard screams in pain as it is momentarily caught beneath the heel of the man's shoe. The creature manages to escape by splitting its tail, leaving the limb behind as it flees. The small creature's severed tail twitches on the floor as it makes its escape. Gossiping guests mock the lizard, labeling it a lowly creature as it flees the room. Hiding in the shadows, Iron sheds tears while listening to the crowd's cruel insults. A dark thought bubble captures her intense frustration at being criticized by the judgmental onlookers. Polished black boots stride purposefully through the grand hall as the chaotic crowd disperses. Erno stands amidst the guests, looking around the room as the atmosphere remains heavy. Clinging to a wall, Iron recalls that Erno supposedly harbors a deep hatred for reptiles. Erno stares down at the plush doll lying abandoned on the floor of the ballroom. Realizing she dropped the precious gift from her father, Iron watches with growing panic.
Her small lizard feet lose their grip, causing her to slip away from her hiding spot.
Iron tumbles through the air, her yellow eyes wide with shock as she falls helplessly.
As she falls, she wonders if this accident will mark the end of her life. Iron questions why she is sliding down the wall and fears sustaining a serious injury. A soft, glowing light surrounds her as she descends through a field of sparkling petals.
Tears well in her eyes as she silently pleads for help during her long descent.
The scene transitions to vibrant blue leaves stretching across a clear and bright sky.
From a distant mountain, a voice reacts with curiosity to something appearing in the distance. The tiger doll lies on the grass, surrounded by white flowers in a quiet field. A hand gently lifts the small pink lizard from the ground near the abandoned doll.
A purple-haired girl mentions their shared tragedy of losing parents while looking at the creature. Smiling maliciously, the mysterious girl decides to keep the transformed child as her new pet.
Back at the mansion, the maid watches the aftermath while guests continue their frantic whispering. Believing her plan was a success, the maid celebrates her perceived victory over the child. A terrifying shadow looms behind the maid as Erno approaches her with a lethal aura. Guests recoil in terror as a sudden, blood-curdling scream echoes through the mansion's grand hall. Blood spatters across a shadowy figure as a violent confrontation unfolds before the horrified witnesses.
The maid collapses in a pool of blood while Erno identifies the child as his daughter.
Holding a bloody sword, Erno looms over the wounded maid while reaffirming his fatherly bond.
Erno asks what other reason is needed before delivering another violent blow to the traitor.
Surrounded by blue flames, Erno challenges the guest to try and stop his righteous fury.
Burning yellow eyes glare through the darkness as Erno's power manifests in a terrifying display.
A narrative bubble notes that the perpetrator spoke too loudly before her inevitable downfall.
A massive strike of energy cuts through the air, marking the end of the confrontation.
Abstract lines fill the scene, representing the sudden and violent shift in the room's energy.
Duke Morel orders Erno to show restraint as blood continues to spill in the ballroom.
Erno indifferently cleans his sword with a white cloth, ignoring the Duke's plea for moderation.
Morel expresses his outrage over Ernos' decision to adopt a reptilian beast as his child.
Erno pauses and looks back over his shoulder, his expression cold and completely unmoved.
A sharp visual effect highlights a sudden movement as tensions between the two men peak. Erno uses a small object to deflect Morel's sword during their sudden and heated clash. The two powerful men trade blows, their weapons clashing in the center of the grand hall.
Erno declares that the child is his baby and only he will decide her future. Erno informs the Duke that he intends to leave the mansion for an indefinite period. Myril is left speechless by the sudden declaration, his face pale with shock and disbelief.
The Duke shouts after Erno, fearing he will commit atrocities if he leaves in this state.
Erno commands the household to bring his daughter to him as quickly as they possibly can.
Morel continues to berate Erno for his lack of limits and his reckless behavior today.
Caillo interjects, suggesting that the Duke is the one who has gone too far this time. Caio reveals that the maid had a suspicious past as an indicative of the moon. Caillo points out that Morel's interrogation would have been terrifying for a completely innocent child.
Two silver-haired men discuss the situation, one asking if the other intends to search for her.
Erno decides to mobilize Tarim and instructs the other man to prioritize his own safety.
Caiola watches Erno depart, promising to provide a report immediately upon locating the missing child. Caillo adjusts his glasses and looks thoughtful while the scene shifts to the party's aftermath. Panic erupts as guests scream for a doctor, desperate to escape the gore filling the hall. Caillo remains calm amidst the chaos while guests shriek in pain from the violent incident.
The setting transitions to a peaceful house standing quietly under a clear and bright sky. Faint glowing particles drift through a quiet room as the morning light begins to settle. Iron wakes up in her lizard form, looking around the unfamiliar room with wide golden eyes.
The purple-haired girl smiles down at the small creature, looking satisfied with her new companion. Narrative bubbles suggest that an explanation is needed regarding how the lizard arrived in this room.
Iron reflects on her situation, noting that she has been here since she first regained consciousness. Chibi panels illustrate Iron's memories of being bullied before the purple-haired girl rescued her.
The exterior of the house is shown again, bathed in the soft light of a new day. The purple-haired girl smiles brightly with her eyes closed, radiating a sense of pure joy.
A decorative card titled The Magician portrays the purple-haired girl wielding magic and holding white flowers.
Narration notes that readers often refer to him by a specific title, building a sense of mystery.
Flashback images show the purple-haired girl acting wild and laughing about dancing until her feet burn.
The girl wonders about the limits of human suffering while standing in her dark, cluttered laboratory.
Smiling maliciously, she assures her subject that she won't kill them, despite the daunting medical tools. The girl names the lizard Bam Bam and declares that it now belongs exclusively to her. Iron worries that this girl might eventually become the insane antagonist from the original novel. Iron has been unsuccessfully trying to transform back into her human body.
The girl notices the lizard's injury and asks if it was born without a tail.
The purple-haired girl assumes that Iron lost her tail because of another bullying lizard's cruelty.
She concludes that all living things are the same, regardless of whether they are humans or reptiles.
The pink lizard looks up suddenly as if sensing a new presence entering the quiet room.
A flashback depicts the purple-haired girl as a lonely, hungry orphan eating a piece of bread.
The orphan girl watches a happy family, reflecting on the tragedy of having no parents left.
Back in the present, the girl reaches out to the lizard, calling it by its name.
Lifting the lizard into the air, the purple-haired girl celebrates their companionship with a cheerful laugh.
The girl asks the lizard for its opinion while Iron reflects on her past life's loneliness.
The girl announces that training starts tomorrow, ignoring the lizard's silent and frantic mental protests. A man bursts through the door, shouting for Richard and startling the girl and her pet.
The girl demands that he knock first while he identifies himself as the school's principal.
Richard stands stoically against a floral background, appearing as a handsome man with a short beard.
The girl stubbornly pouts, expressing her lack of interest in hearing whatever the man has to say. Richard notes her lack of friends, but insists that practice is necessary for her to succeed. The lizard is held tightly, its eyes wide with shock as the two humans continue their argument. Richard looms over the girl, creating a tense atmosphere as she remains seated at the table.
The girl looks confused while the man stares at her with a serious and unwavering expression.
Richard reminds her that pets are forbidden in the house, causing her to panic and hide Aaron. She attempts to deceive him by claiming she is just having a sudden bout of hippets. The girl holds out her hands to show they are empty, hiding the lizard behind her back.
Richard sees through her deception and demands that she move out of his immediately.
The purple-haired girl shouts her refusal, determined to protect the small lizard from being taken away.
Glowing with magical energy, she defies the principal and declares that nobody takes her belongings.
An old manuscript tells the story of a gentle boy living happily within a harmonious family. The boy receives a divine command to take up a sword and protect his native land. The brave boy defeats the enemy, bringing the war to an end through his heroic actions.
Burning ruins surround a solitary sword, marking a brutal end to a hard-fought battle. The victorious warrior mourns in a quiet room, questioning the hollow meaning of his success.
After abandoning his village in grief, the hero vanishes, leaving behind only mysterious rumors. The purple-haired girl confronts Richard, her eyes flashing with intense anger and cold magical energy. While the girl remains defensive, Richard warns her that the current situation is extremely dangerous.
Iron watches the tense argument with a nervous expression, sweating as the atmosphere intensifies.
Richard questions her about the hero while the girl gathers swirling ice magic around her.
The girl defends the hero's departure, insisting he sought a better place for them all.
She tells Richard to stop being stubborn as Iron suddenly darts across the floor.
Iron makes a frantic dash toward Richard, her tiny feet scrambling quickly across the wood.
The girl cries out for Bam Bam while Richard looks down at the lizard in disbelief.
Richard stands frozen as Iron bows her head low in a surprising gesture of submission.
A close-up shows Iron's tail as she remains in her deeply respectful and humble bow. Iron looks up at Richard while the man remains completely stunned by the creature's behavior. Richard is left speechless, his face pale with confusion as he processes the lizard's actions. The lizard nods her head vigorously and gives an enthusiastic affirmation to the girl's question.
The girl expresses her amazement at how the magical creature seems to fully understand speech.
Richard thoughtfully considers the possibility that a special lizard of this size might possess intelligence.
The girl looks on with surprise as Richard finally acknowledges the lizard's behavior is good. Richard decides to head out, instructing the girl to educate the creature well in his absence.
Iron sits quietly in the empty room, looking toward the door where Richard just departed.
The purple-haired girl stands alone, looking thoughtful as the morning light settles in the room.
Suddenly, she collapses to her knees and shouts Bam Bam's name with a look of relief. The girl demands an explanation for the bow, asking the lizard how she performed that feat. Kneeling on the floor, the girl declares that their shared destiny makes Iron truly special.
Lifting the lizard high, she reflects on their future and notes they have places to go. Amidst a background of flowers, the girl delivers a serious warning about the consequences of running.
The girl hugs Iron affectionately, her eyes closed in a moment of pure, heartfelt joy.
Iron looks surprised while a vision of her human self appears in her mind. Surrounded by golden light and white flowers, the girl kneels while cradling her small pet. A beautiful mansion stands tall under a bright sky, surrounded by lush, towering evergreen trees.
Students gather in a large dining hall, enjoying their meals while a lively atmosphere fills the room.
A student stops mid-meal and notes that the target of their attention has finally arrived.
The purple-haired girl walks through the hall with a tray, her expression calm and indifferent. Students whisper maliciously about the girl, mockingly questioning her hunger after she skipped practice. The boys express their jealousy over the principal's favoritism and the girl's private, spacious room. The girl ignores the jealous murmurs, continuing her walk through the dining hall with stoic silence. Food splatters violently across a tray, reflecting the girl's aggressive reaction to the cruel insults. As the girl walks past, a student labels her as an unlucky person while friends watch. The girl slams her wooden tray onto a boy's head, drenching him in food during her outburst. The girl snaps at the students, calling them pigs and ordering them to stop being noisy. Looming over the fallen boy, the girl coldly demands that he repeat his insult about Iron. The girl prepares her magic, asking the boy if he remembers before offering a violent reminder. A hand firmly grips the girl's wrist, stopping her magical attack before she strikes the student. Richard intervenes, his expression stern as ice shards shatter around the girl's small, glowing hand. The girl yells in protest, arguing that the principal must have heard the other students' insults. Richard warns her that her actions are reckless and could have easily killed her opponent. The purple-haired girl looks away with a pained expression, struggling to contain her tears. She screams her defiance, questioning why their lives matter when they want her dead. Richard looks on with a complicated expression, his brow furrowed as he hears the girl's outburst. Sharni yells at the principal, accusing him of being ignorant as he drags her away. Sharn runs into the hallway, frantically asking the others where they are all hanging. Students stand around the messy dining hall, processing the chaos of the recent violent outburst. Iron sits alone on the windowsill, watching the sun set behind the tall evergreen trees. Iron recalls a request to bring back fruit while her human image lingers nearby. Richard prepares to leave, signaling his urgent need for some professional assistance as he departs. Iron reacts with shock upon hearing the news that Richard has already left the house. Richard kneels in the center of a quiet room, which is bathed in evening light. The pink lizard peeks out from under the bed, watching Richard's movements very carefully. Richard is surprised to realize the creature can actually understand and process his human speech. Richard extends his open hand, waiting for the small creature to trust him and approach. Surrounded by golden light and roses, Richard offers a hand to the small pink lizard. The scene shifts to the darkening forest as crickets begin their loud evening song. A powerful force slams into the earth, scattering dead leaves and dirt across the ground. Richard leaps through the forest, holding Iron close while asking her about her current well-being. Richard asks if she senses his scent, while Iron mentally pleads for her own life. Richard chases his target while Iron panics about falling and dying in the high-speed blur. Richard notices something ahead as Iron vows to survive despite the terrifying, fast-paced chase. Richard observes the distant village, noting that his target usually heads in that specific direction. Richard wonders if Iron is sensitive because of her species, and she affirms his guess. Richard kicks off a sturdy tree branch, propelling himself forward with incredible physical speed. Richard lands near the village outskirts and tells the lizard to stay behind for now. Richard explains the village is too dangerous and instructs Iron to search the outer perimeter. Richard provides his own scent for tracking, asking the lizard to help find his friend. Richard presents a sample for tracking while Iron protests being treated exactly like a dog. A faint magical trail shimmers through the air, marking a path in the deepening darkness. Iron expresses her confusion, but suddenly perceives the clear magical path leading her forward. Richard bids the lizard farewell, reminding her to stay cautious near the village walls. Iron looks completely drained, her eyes drooping from the intensity of the night's frantic events. Iron decides to push through her fatigue and track the scent despite her many worries. The full moon shines brightly over the dark treetops, illuminating the quiet blue night. Iron leans down and begins sniffing the cobblestones to follow the lingering magical scent. Iron spots Sharn sitting alone on a small swing set in the middle of time. Iron approaches the sobbing girl, watching as Sharni hides her face in her own hands. Sharn looks up in shock as the small pink lizard finally makes its presence known. Sharni wipes away her tears, stunned that this small creature actually tracked and found her. Sharni smiles brightly, welcoming Iron with open arms as they happily reunite in the night. Sharni holds her pet close, worrying that such a small body must be completely exhausted. Sharn sits on the swing, apologizing for the trouble caused by the cruel, mean students. Sharni reveals she tied up her bullies, ensuring they cannot bother her for the time. Flashbacks show the boy Ash laughing and bragging about his wealthy new adoptive parents. Text describes Sharni's extreme disgust toward the boy's constant bragging about finding new families. Sharni sits quietly in the moonlit park, her expression falling into a deep sadness. Sharni insists she isn't jealous while claiming she is fine despite having no living parents. Sharn watches a family through a window, her eyes reflecting a profound sense of longing. Sharni questions why her parents abandoned her as she watches the happy family dining inside. Sharni realizes that her magical nature likely terrified her family and drove them far away. Sharn grips the rope of the swing tightly, her mind filled with bitter, dark thoughts. Sharn wishes she had been left alone entirely, as Iron watches her with deep concern. Narration explains Sharnay met Richard in her youth, leading him to discover the ultimate truth. A grand interior is showcased with ornate window frames and glowing chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Text identifies the silhouetted figure as the long-lost youngest son belonging to the Collin family. A sudden realization flashes across the screen in a burst of bright, white light and sparkles. Sharn ponders that Richard would be much gentler if he finally found his true family members. A vision of white flowers frames the hope for a better future for Sharn and Richard. Silhouettes depict a formal proposal, representing the dream of a much better life ahead for them.
Sharny sits quietly on a swing in the forest while Iron rests on her lap.
The small pink lizard strikes a cheerful pose, appearing extremely happy and energetic in the moonlight. Sharny gazes down at her pet with a mixture of sadness and quiet affection while swinging. Iron mentally insists that Sharn's family didn't abandon her and that there is more to the story. The lizard suggests they return home immediately, gesturing excitedly toward the direction of the village house. Sharn watches with surprise as the small lizard points toward a specific destination in the distance.
Confused by the lizard's frantic spinning, Sharn asks the creature what it is trying to communicate.
A gentle hand reaches out to pet the lizard's head as it looks up with exhaustion. Sharny smiles broadly, her face lit up with genuine happiness as she relaxes on the swing. The hand continues to stroke the lizard's back, providing comfort and warmth in the quiet night.
Iron reacts with surprise to the touch, her large yellow eyes widening slightly in the moonlight.
Sharny suddenly sneezes, her body jolting while she remains seated on the wooden swing seat. Worried, Sharn holds Iron close and asks if the little creature has caught a cold. Sharn notes the wind is growing colder as the swing continue to creak against the tree.
The full moon illuminates the peaceful hills and the quiet fence of the village outskirts.
Sharny begins her walk back through the village with Iron perched securely on her shoulder. A close-up shows Boots walking steadily across the stone-paved path of the town at night. Sharny passes by a brightly lit shop window filled with various gifts and boxed presents. The girl walks alone down the wide village street as a few other residents pass by. Villagers stand under a street lamp, engaged in a quiet conversation in the middle of town. An old woman listens intently as a brown-haired man speaks to her on the darkened street. The man turns his head slightly, appearing to notice something or someone nearby in the shadows. Sharny walks past the man and the elderly woman as they stand near the stone stairs. A spectral image of a girl appears over the village as Sharn continues her lonely journey. A pink-haired girl smiles warmly, her image surrounded by floating light and white flowers. Sharny is enveloped in a warm hug, her face buried against the man's dark cloak. The moon shines brightly in the clear night sky, surrounded by twinkling stars and clouds. Sharn sleeps soundly in her bed while Iron sits watch on the open windowsill nearby. A man enters the quiet bedroom and asks the lizard if it is still awake yet. He peers through the window at the lizard, labeling the creature as a nocturnal species. The man thanks Iron, noting that life has brightened significantly since Richard first met her. Looking at the sleeping girl, he remarks that Richard isn't as strong as he outwardly appears.
A vision shows a child being mocked by dark figures for being the son of a wizard.
The man shares his personal opinion that Richard's parents would never have intentionally let him go. Holding a wrapped gift, the man explains that wizards care deeply for their own family members. He asks the lizard to look after Richard and help fill the void in his heart. The man departs, admitting to himself that dealing with children is still a difficult task. Sharny reflects on her inability to speak as she looks back on her time at the swing. Both Sharn and her pet lizard fall into a deep, peaceful sleep on the soft bed. A close-up shows Sharn's calm face as she rests comfortably against her large white pillow. Iron sleeps on her side, a small puff of air indicating her quiet, deep breathing.
The lizard struggles with an itchy sensation on its back, squirming around on the white bedsheet.
Iron looks exhausted as she lies flat on the bed, her eyes half closed with deep fatigue. Narrative text signals the arrival of tomorrow against a backdrop of swirling blue and pink light. The narrative explains that the current night appeared exactly like any other typical night. The only difference was that the moon shone with an exceptionally bright and brilliant light. A clear, starry sky remains peaceful and silent as the late-night hours pass by. A wooden staff strikes the floor as Richard curses the director for his strictness. Richard grips his staff tightly and insists that he already apologized for his recent behavior. Richard runs through the hallway, shouting that he will never see the director again when older. Richard bursts into his room, happily announcing his arrival and promising fruit for his pet lizard. Richard stops in his tracks when he discovers a mysterious pink-haired girl standing inside his room. The young girl gazes back at him with large amber eyes and a quiet, curious expression. The girl stands tall, revealing a long pink tail while holding a small shed lizard skin.
Richard is completely frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the transformation that occurred in his room.
A close-up reveals Richard's widened eye as he continues to stare at the unexpected human stranger.
Richard demands to know the girl's identity while she frantically tries to get him to listen. Iron identifies the lizard skin as hers while urging the startled boy to calm down. A memory shows a hand holding the small pink lizard that Richard previously knew as Bam Bam. Richard remains suspicious and continues to question the girl's presence while she looks at him nervously. Richard prepares his ice magic, calling the girl a bastard and demanding to know Bam Bam's whereabouts. The director appears and warns that Richard's magical attack might actually kill his innocent opponent. The director notes the risk of the situation while Richard maintains his aggressive, magic-filled stance.
A strong hand reaches out and effortlessly crushes the ice magic before it can be released.
The director enters the room and firmly tells Richard to stop his magical outburst immediately. Richard tells the girl to leave quickly while the director asks what the fuss is about. Richard frantically explains to the director that a complete stranger has somehow entered his private bedroom.
Richard complains that the girl is talking nonsense by claiming that she is actually his pet. The girl stands quietly, her long pink tail twitching slightly from underneath her large blue cloak. The director observes that the girl appears to be approximately 5 years old during the confrontation. The director states there are no guardians present and identifies the young girl as Iron.
Iron softly confirms her identity, looking down with a mixture of sadness and quiet vulnerability.
Richard and the director sit on the sofa, listening intently as the situation begins to settle. The director explains that lizard men usually reside in tropical regions and are rarely seen in person.
The director notes that her home region has hot weather all year round while Iron listens. Iron looks away, her eyes reflecting a deep sense of loneliness and hidden, painful memories.
Iron wonders if she should have been warned about the danger of her sudden human transformation.
The director asks Iron if she lost her parents, but she struggles to provide an answer.
A dark, heavy atmosphere fills the scene as the conversation touches upon Iron's mysterious past. Iron experiences a terrifying vision of a shadowed, golden-eyed man reaching out toward her in darkness.
The director tells Iron she doesn't have to speak while Richard watches her with concern.
The director wonders what kind of person would abandon a young animal child who requires constant care.
The director asks Irene if she would like to stay here with Richard for a while.
Iron ponders how to manage her large tail as she considers the offer to stay behind.
Iron apologizes for her tail not fitting in her skirt, but the director offers gentle comfort.
The director plans to visit the capital to settle business and search for information on lizardmen. Iron asks about the capital, and the director confirms there are many things to handle there. Iron thinks about the capital, wondering what new challenges and information might be waiting for her.
A grand, white mansion stands under a bright sky, representing the group's upcoming journey and destination.
Time passes as the scene shifts, focusing on Irene as she continues her life with Richard. Irene realizes that she can find happiness and a home despite her unexpected and strange circumstances.
A decorative box contains a large lollipop and various sweets as a thoughtful gift for Irene. Irene presents a box filled with crystals and natural treasures, asking Richard if he finds it pretty. Irene asks if Richard collected all the items herself, and the boy confirms it with pride. Richard explains that Bam Bam will find many pretty things while walking around the backyard. Narrative text highlights acorns as one of the many treasures waiting to be discovered. The story notes that red maple leaves are another beautiful item found in nature.
Richard gleefully presents a centipede corpse, eliciting a scream of pure terror from Irene.
Irene demands to know why he picked it up, while Richard finds it amazing. A narrative reflects that it has been 3 days since Irene returned to human form. Richard excitedly promises that there are other things to see that are actually very pretty. Irene looks on with wide eyes as Richard presents a small, sparkling blue gemstone. A close-up shows the brilliant blue crystal catching the light in a character's hand. A vision of the man Erno wearing a similar earring appears in the background. Richard asks Bam Bam if she likes the object while she responds with a hesitant, well.
Richard simply states that he knows while focusing intently on the blue stone.
Richard declares he named her Bam Bam because he saved her, making the name official. Irene gazes at the crystal while wishing she could be called by her real name.
Richard asks if he should give the gemstone to Bam Bam, catching her by surprise.
Richard suggests that if he gives something, he must also receive something in return. Irene begins to respond with a thoughtful pause as she considers a possible trade. A small, stylized image of the pink lizard version of Irene appears, looking determined. Richard tells Irene that he plans to take her to the capital very soon.
Richard looks off into the distance, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of serious purpose.
The narrative emphasizes the weight and importance of a firm answer in this moment. Richard complains the capital is crowded, but mentions that candies and fruits await them. Irene excitedly mentions a surprise that Richard could never have imagined waiting for them. Richard asks what the surprise is, but Iron insists on keeping it a secret. Iron nods her head vigorously with a determined expression, keeping her secret hidden away. Richard gazes at the blue gemstone, contemplating the future journey they will take together. Iron smiles with genuine happiness, her amber eyes shining against a soft floral background.
A narrative bubble ponders what might happen if they cannot go to the capital.
Richard and Iron share a quiet, close moment as the blue crystal shimmers between them.
A narrative bubble declares that Bam Bam will remain by Richard's side for a long time. Richard suggests that since they are both alone, they should become a family to each other.
Iron stares back at Richard with a solemn, focused gaze as the wind blows.
Two hands join together in a pinky promise, sealing their vow to be a family. A crude crayon drawing depicts a carriage departing for a new adventure tomorrow morning. Another drawing shows a figure with a sword meeting someone through a window at night.
The drawings detail a plan to hide under the coachman's chair to avoid being seen.
Iron proudly displays her colorful crayon map showing the road leading to the capital. Richard looks at the drawing with a blank and slightly confused expression on his face. Richard gives an honest evaluation of the plan, bluntly calling the entire idea reckless. Richard reminds her of the director's strictness and asks what happens if they get caught. Iron asks if it would be okay if she managed to hide herself very well. Iron is shocked to learn the trip takes a week while Richard sits in a box. Iron asks if the journey is really that hard while looking at Richard with concern.
Visuals depict plans involving a bank withdrawal and giving a mysterious fragment to Erno.
Richard explains that he must go to the capital to complete all of these plans. Richard asks if Bam Bam wants to go to the capital while holding her colorful drawing.
A drawing shows Richard and Iron holding lollipops in front of a castle and rainbow.
Richard looks at the paper with a soft, thoughtful expression, touched by her innocent vision.
Richard asks if they made a promise yesterday and reaffirms that they are now family.
Richard reaches out his hand, promising to support Bam Bam in whatever she decides to do. Iron gazes upward with a quiet, curious expression, her large amber eyes reflecting deep thought. Richard and Iron stand together in a flower-filled room, appearing ready for their next step.
Lush greenery and sparkling light signal a change in the atmosphere as the scene shifts.
A large, multi-chimneyed manor stands proudly under a clear sky, marking the journey's next destination. A covered wagon sits ready for departure while men discuss the final details of the trip. Richard and Iron find themselves uncomfortably squished inside a narrow wooden box to remain hidden. A comparison shows their happy expectations for the hideout versus the cramped, crying reality of it. Richard speaks Iron's name softly, causing the young girl to react with a look of surprise.
Iron stares with wide, sparkling eyes at the unexpected beauty or wonder appearing before her.
Richard looks down with a heavy blush, clearly embarrassed or deeply moved by a private moment. Richard stubbornly turns away, insisting that nothing is bothering him, while Iron watches him closely.
Iron experiences a sudden, sharp realization as she stares intensely at something hidden from view.
The carriage wheel spins into motion, causing Iron to react with a sudden look of shock. The coachman confirms there is no oversized cargo while the hidden children feel the carriage move. The carriage travels down a bumpy road, leaving the narrative to declare the plan a failure. Heavy rain falls over a grand classical building, setting a somber tone for the current scene. Two hands clasped together amidst a powerful golden glow, signifying the completion of a magical bond.
Erno and a young girl sit on a sofa, enveloped by a shimmering magical aura.
Erno ponders the strangeness of the situation while looking at the young girl beside him. Erno recalls that most people calm down quickly, yet he wonders why she is an exception. Erno agrees to the current situation as his hand glows, seemingly finishing a complex magical task. Erno dismisses the young girl, telling her to return to her room while looking visibly exhausted. The young girl reacts with a look of sadness after being dismissed by the stern man. The girl sits alone in a vast, ornate room, reflecting the isolation of her current life. Kalan and Cillian approach Erno in the hallway, calling out to him as he walks away. One of the boys asks for news, but Erno continues walking with a preoccupied expression. Erno complains about receiving repetitive reports with no progress while promising to visit them soon. Erno tells the boys to find a justification for running away as he moves with purpose.
Erno thinks to himself that Iron would never appreciate a father with his current behavior.
A memory shows Erno turning over records to cooperate, but he remains frustrated by the delays. Cillian suggests that Erno should contact them personally if he values his own well-being. Erno enters a room with a solemn expression, followed closely by Kalan and Cillian. A close-up focuses on Erno's ornate shoes as he walks with heavy, purposeful steps across the floor. Iron wakes up happily in a luxurious bed, wishing someone a good day with a smile. The scene shifts to an empty bed while heavy rain continues to pour outside the window. Erno sits on the edge of the bed, his posture reflecting deep thought and internal conflict.
A visual texture panel emphasizes the heavy, oppressive atmosphere surrounding Erno's current state of mind.
Narrative text reflects on a turning point in the past as Erno sits in the darkness.
A caption explains that Erno's initial motivation for his actions was nothing more than simple curiosity. Erno reflects on the interest and sensations he felt through the power of a mysterious ring.
Soft, glowing lines represent the fading of Erno's past motivations as his perspective begins to shift.
Erno recalls being bored with his usual pastimes and wanting to perform a fun, theatrical skit. A theatrical imagery panel depicts the idealized roles of a loving father and a devoted daughter. The imagery shifts to a broken stage, symbolizing the rejection of a role once it becomes boring. A transition panel uses abstract light to bridge the gap between Erno's past and his present. Erno realizes that his feelings transformed from seeing her as a fake relative to something much deeper.
A final narrative box confirms that Irene has become a daughter whom Erno truly and deeply cherishes.
One of the boys calls out, "Father?" as he notices Erno's hand flinch with sudden emotion.
Callan and Cillian ask if Erno is all right, noting his long silence and strange behavior lately.
Erno addresses the boys, ordering them to cancel his schedule for an urgent and important trip. Callan and Cillian react with utter disbelief to the sudden news they have just received. Cillian questions the sudden cancellation of the schedule with the Duke of Dinkin. Cillian follows the man, reminding him of an appointment made 2 months ago. As the man walks away, he recalls promising the girl wealth and security. Narrative text ponders if she is hiding due to a misunderstanding or if she is safe.
The man stands alone by the window, lost in thought as the rain falls.
A moment of quiet contemplation follows as the man watches the storm outside. The man reflects on his worries while the rain continues to pour over the landscape. The scene shifts to Irene and a purple-haired girl standing in a sunlit forest. The director confronts the children about their dangerous hiding spot under the driver's seat. The director expresses his shock and questions their reckless decision to hide in the carriage. The director tells Irene to go home, relieved that she was not hurt during the trip. Irene begs to go to the Capitol, but the director firmly refuses her request. The director warns that the Capitol is full of criminals and traffickers at night. Irene insists she has important business, but the director offers to handle it himself. The purple-haired girl addresses the man as director, surprising Irene with his identity. The purple-haired girl tries to explain that she and Bam Bam made a promise together. Narrative text transitions the scene, indicating a specific reason for the current situation.
Irene presents the brilliant blue gemstone, holding it carefully in both of her hands.
With a determined look, Irene prepares to use the crystal to support her plea. The purple-haired girl reacts with shock to a sudden mention of the name Etan.
Irene explains her connection to the Edom family and her need to go herself.
The director questions her claim about being an acquaintance of the prestigious Etam family.
Irene acknowledges her reckless behavior while maintaining her intense focus on her goal.
Irene explains that her family could be in great danger without the blue stone. The director remains skeptical as Irene insists she heard news of the family's peril.
A coachman calls out from the carriage, urging the group to move toward the village.
The director tries to end the talk, but Irene continues to plead with him.
Irene desperately promises to stay calm and follow his instructions if allowed to go.
Irene clenches her fists, her posture reflecting the absolute necessity of her journey.
A shimmering light against a dark background signifies a turning point in the conversation. Irene looks up with tear-filled eyes, begging the director to take her with him. The director looks at Irene, his expression shifting from sternness to visible hesitation. The director closes his eyes, appearing to finally give in to her persistence. The director relents, agreeing to hear the details as they travel before night falls. Irene reacts with pure joy and excitement at the news of her success. Irene expresses her gratitude and quickly heads toward the carriage while the director watches. The two girls stand together on the path, the purple-haired one appearing visibly troubled.
The purple-haired girl clenches her teeth, her eyes shadowed as she mentions Richard.
A close-up shows the purple-haired girl looking intensely frustrated and suspicious. The purple-haired girl watches Bam Bam with a dark, calculating expression on her face. A foot enters the frame as Irene stands alone in the forest clearing. The purple-haired girl praises Irene's adaptability, much to the younger girl's confusion. A vision shows the blue gemstone as the girl recalls receiving the jewelry. Irene admits her forgetfulness while the other girl brings up the subject of Richard. A close-up shows one character grabbing the other's hand with sudden, firm force. The purple-haired girl pulls Irene along, urging her to hurry toward the village. Irene looks forward to having dinner at the village with a cheerful smile. A wooden structure breaks apart, releasing a brilliant burst of light and sparks. A close-up of a wide, amber eye captures a moment of sudden realization. The carriage sets off through the lush forest as the group begins the next leg of their journey. Narrative text reflects on a precarious situation, comparing the growing instability to a ticking time bomb. Irene sits with a somber expression beside a tall, wobbly tower of wooden blocks in the dim light.
The carriage arrives at a magnificent sunlit manor, drawing a cry of wonder from the passengers. Inside the opulent manor, the purple-haired girl marvels at the marble floors while Erno leads the way. The purple-haired girl excitedly points out a classy elevator as Irene watches her with a curious expression. After the purple-haired girl admires the soft carpet, Erno sternly warns Richard not to stomp in the hallway. Upon finding food on a table, the purple-haired girl asks to eat, while Erno explains the manor's hospitality. The purple-haired girl joyfully eats macarons, prompting a question about her talking with her mouth full. Erno gathers Richard and Irene in a luxurious room, telling them to listen carefully and remember his words. Erno explains his 4-day business trip to the capital and orders the children not to leave the manor.
Erno presents a specialized communication device, instructing them to contact him first if any emergencies or questions arise.
Erno promises to examine Iren's blue jewel after his work is finished, and she quietly accepts his plan. With a firm clap of his gloved hands, Erno signals the end of their meeting and his departure. As sunset glows through the windows, Erno tells the group to have dinner and prepare for bed. Night falls over the manor, with moonlight casting a serene glow through the large, ornate windows. Iren and the purple-haired girl sleep peacefully together in the comfort of a large, luxurious bed. Erno pauses in the doorway, casting a final, lingering look at the sleeping children before he leaves. With a weary sigh, Erno turns away and prepares to set out on his urgent business trip. The heavy door clicks shut, sealing the quiet room as the master of the manor departs. Shimmering magical particles float through the air, marking a transition into a moment of deep reflection. A memory surfaces of a younger girl tearfully pleading with her father to take her to the capital. Erno walks alone with his hood pulled low, appearing deeply troubled by his past decisions and secrets. A streak of magical light passes over a desk cluttered with papers and a framed family photograph. A close-up reveals a cherished photo of a younger, smiling Erno with a woman and a small child. Narrative text emphasizes the heavy feeling of regret that currently weighs on Erno's mind during his journey. Various essential travel items, including communication tools and chocolates, are laid out as preparations are completed. Dressed in her hooded robe, Iren prepares her belongings and holds a single coin with a determined look. Iren worries about the cost of banking while imagining a tense confrontation with soldiers from the Eatum family. Slipping out of the room, Irene carries her bags and prepares to set off on her own secret mission. The purple-haired girl remains sound asleep, completely unaware that Iren has decided to leave the manor. Iren recalls the purple-haired girl's possessive promise to keep her close, which fuels her desire for independence. Looking at the sleeping manor, Iren decides that Richard is still just a kid who shouldn't be involved. Narrative text reflects on past misunderstandings while Iren leaves a final letter behind on the desk. Standing alone in the elevator, Iren worries if anyone can see her hidden features as she escapes. The elevator arrives at the ground floor with a chime, and the doors slowly begin to slide open. Iren steps out into a bright open area, her eyes glowing with resolve as she begins her journey. A sudden, loud growl from Iren's stomach breaks her concentration, much to her embarrassment and annoyance. Iren stops to eat a piece of bread, bidding a silent farewell to her companions for now. Walking through the town, Iren marvels at the sweet taste and quality of the bread in this world. A comical despair hits Iren as she realizes she spent nearly all her money on just one snack. Standing by a grand fountain in the bustling town, Irene tells herself to calm down and keep moving. Iren searches the street for an empty private carriage, hoping to find a way to travel cheaply. Iren calculates her dwindling funds, considering getting off halfway if she cannot afford the full trip. In a quiet alleyway, Iren spots a small, huddled figure and pauses to investigate with a curious look. A child wrapped in a dark cloak sits alone on the ground, hidden away from the city crowd. Iren observes that the cloaked child is around Richard's age and appears to be starving on the streets. A close-up shows Iren's boots stepping onto the rough cobblestones as she approaches the lonely, cloaked child. Iren stops in front of the child and calls out softly, trying to get his attention. With a kind and gentle offer, Irene asks the hungry boy if he would like some of her bread. Iren holds out a piece of bread, hoping a small snack will help the stranger. Iren says that if he doesn't want strawberry flavor, she also has a black tea flavor. Irene continues her offer, saying that if it is okay, she will give the bread to him. The child looks up, revealing a face of unexpected elegance beneath the dark, tattered hood. Irene gasps in surprise as she finally sees the mysterious child's face clearly for the first time. The boy is strikingly beautiful, with soft silver hair and eyes as blue as a clear sky. The silver-haired boy stares back at Irene with a quiet, hollow gaze that betrays no emotion. Irene remains speechless, overwhelmed by the sheer ethereal beauty of the boy sitting in the dirt. Delicate blue flowers bloom across the frame, marking a moment of profound and quiet connection.
The beautiful boy stands out against the floral background, looking like a figure from a dream. A title card appears announcing the start of the third part of the knowledge of the adopted child. Narrative text clarifies that the story usually does not detail the looks of the supporting characters. A book describes Etam's sharp face, honey-sparkling eyes, and hair that seems to have absorbed all darkness.
Iron considers herself a disposable side character compared to the striking figures mentioned in the story's lore.
Narrative text notes that this boy is as undeniably beautiful as a flower that everyone must admit. The silver-haired boy accepts the bread, holding it with both hands as he continues to watch Iron. Iron decides to leave, knowing this boy is a supporting actor related to Sharn and the Edom family. In her heart, Iron wishes to return to a peaceful life at the orphanage as soon as possible. Iron hurries away from the alleyway, her cheeks flushed as she tries to focus on her mission. Sitting among the barrels, the silver-haired boy watches Iron depart while holding the gift of bread. The boy remains motionless in the shadows, his blue eyes fixed on the path the girl took.
The piece of bread sits in the boy's hands, its strawberry topping glistening under the city light.
The boy addresses Arma, the god of the empire, as he looks down at the unexpected gift. High above the city, the clouds drift apart as a voice reflects that a miracle has happened. The scene returns to the grand manor, standing proud and opulent under the bright afternoon sun.
A pen moves across a letter as someone diligently writes near a stamp of a praying figure.
The scarred master asks if there is still no news, and his subordinate admits they are still trying. The scarred man complains that if that guy hadn't blamed the fluff, things would be different. A man with glasses smiles pleasantly, unbothered by the master's visible frustration and constant grumbling. The master asks what he did, and the subordinate reminds him that he said the same thing before.
The scarred man yells that he's been like this, and Edom's other children grew up that way.
The master insists he must act first before talking, a philosophy he applied to a crying child. With a calm smile, the man with glasses says that he truly understands the master's heart. A memory of a small, frightened girl appears as the narrator warns that fear and shock are great. The scarred man looks somber, acknowledging that the wounds of childhood are not easily erased or forgotten. The master asks what the scoundrel is doing, and the man with glasses identifies him as Sir Erman. The subordinate reports that Erno canceled his schedule with Marquis Fleur today for some personal work. The man with glasses reports that Erno also canceled an important appointment with Duke Duncan recently.
The master is outraged to learn that Erno has canceled his schedule for 3 days in a row.
A pen snaps in half with a loud crack, unable to withstand the master's sudden, explosive fury. The scarred man roars in anger, accusing Erno of wanting to make the entire family fall apart.
A furious scream calling Erno's name echoes through the hallways and out into the manor gardens.
Crows take flight from the rooftops of a cramped village, cawing loudly into the pale afternoon sky.
A large crow descends toward a street where a man urges another to open his eyes. A heavy door creaks open as a traveler steps into the dim, cool interior of a tavern. The bartender notes it is daytime and asks the hood visitor if they came for a drink. The bartender realizes the visitor came for a mercenary quest instead of a simple drink or meal. The cloaked visitor drops a bag on the counter and coldly demands what they ordered. The bartender chuckles, noting that the visitor's rigidity hasn't changed at all since the old days. A hand presents a shimmering gold card, signifying the completion or start of a dangerous official quest. Erno considers the gold ingot, noting the sudden surge of people visiting the auction. At the tavern, the bartender asks Erno why he is visiting such a hateful place. Erno reveals his plan to purchase the children and safely transport them to an orphanage. The bartender warns Erno about the auctioneer while pouring a drink for his steady customer. A mystical title card introduces Myungwol, the legendary host of the underworld's vast information network. Myungwol sits amidst dark blooming camellias, their face hidden by a mask of deep shadows. Narrative text explains that Myungwol's intelligence is so extensive that even the emperor is outmatched. Erno accepts a drink as he reflects on the terrifying rumors surrounding the mysterious guild leader. The bartender crosses his arms, relieved that Erno understands the dangers of his upcoming mission.
Moonlight illuminates a grand manor, while jewelry and ancient relics symbolize the auction's massive scale.
Shackled beastkin are shown as victims of the guild's desperate efforts to expand their collection. The bartender warns Erno about the cruelty of guildmasters and bids him a safe return. A host asks a black-haired boy if the provided information met his high noble standards. Erno watches from the corner as the noble boy is invited to stay much longer. From a wide angle, the tavern staff bows deeply to see Erno off after his visit. The black-haired boy glances back, politely requesting that Erno returns whenever he finds the time. Erno remains at the bar, bluntly telling an invisible speaker to go away after their offer. The bartender teases Erno about his intense staring, jokingly asking if he has fallen in love. Erno asks about the boy's identity, but the bartender admits he only knows he's noble. The bartender recalls a rumor that the boy is a former casino master searching for someone.
The scarred man explains that the noble's daughter went missing, fueling his desperate and ongoing search.
Erno listens as the bartender describes the guild's habit of kidnapping children to expand their business.
The bartender sighs, stating that people who commit such atrocities must eventually receive their retribution. Donning his hood, Erno prepares to depart because he still has significant work to finish.
The bartender waves a casual farewell, reminding Erno that he is welcome to visit any time.
A close-up of Erno's determined gaze as he prepares to venture out into the night.
A purple cloak billows in the wind, signaling a shift in the story's focus and location.
Iron stands amidst a garden of golden flowers, her eyes bright with focus and quiet resolve.
A sprawling view of the city square shows many people moving about during a clear day.
Iron walks through the town square, blending into the crowd while staying focused on her path.
The silver-haired boy follows Irene from a distance, his steps perfectly mimicking her determined pace. Split panels show the contrasting profiles of Irene and the boy as they walk through town.
In the middle of the street, Irene stops and looks back at her persistent hooded stalker.
Irene frustrates the boy by explaining she has no more food or money for him.
The silver-haired boy surprises Irene by offering to buy her bread if she lets him stay.
Irene is utterly confused when the mysterious boy asks if he can join her on her journey.
The two stand in the busy square as the boy admits he has nowhere else to go. To Irene's shock, the boy kneels and asks if he can consider her his new master.
The silver-haired boy looks up with a radiant, blissful smile and eyes full of pure joy.
Erin is overwhelmed by the boy's sudden devotion, her face turning purple with intense social embarrassment. Panicked, Irene shouts for the boy to get up, desperate to avoid making a public scene. A sudden realization hits Irene as she notices the crowd starting to whisper about their interaction. Townspeople gossip loudly, accusing Irene of being a cruel, noble child who is mistreating her servant.
Irene covers her face and cries out in despair, insisting that the situation is a huge misunderstanding.
Desperate to leave the square, Irene tells the boy to stand up so they can depart. Irene finally relents, telling the boy she understands his request if he will just stop kneeling.
The silver-haired boy beams with a sweet, innocent smile, overjoyed by Irene's reluctant but firm acceptance.
As they walk, the boy happily asks where they are going next on their shared journey.
Irene reminds the boy that she is just a beggar with absolutely no money to share.
The silver-haired boy suggests Irene speak comfortably since he is younger than her.
With a bright smile, the silver-haired boy joyfully accepts his role as Irene's servant. Irene approaches a carriage driver as she attempts to find transportation across the city square.
The driver adjusts his hat and politely asks Irene to state her business.
Irene asks the driver for the cost and duration of a trip to Duke Cullen's.
The driver refuses Irene due to her age, while a noblewoman calls for a ride. The driver accepts the noblewoman's request while telling Irene she needs a guardian to truckle.
Irene is left in the dust, shouting in frustration as the carriage departs without her. The silver-haired boy reappears behind Irene, claiming he knows the way to the Duke's estate. Irene initially refuses the boy's help, worried that walking will take too much time. The scene shifts as the pair arrives at a location surrounded by vibrant blue greenery. The boy proudly presents a grand mansion, indicating they have finally reached their destination. Irene stares at the massive estate in stunned silence, unable to believe they arrived so quickly. Irene is outraged to learn the mansion was just around the corner from the main street. A sprawling view of the mansion reveals a massive garden sparkling under the afternoon sun. The boy smiles warmly at Irene, encouraging her to call for him if she needs anything. Irene thanks the boy and prepares to approach the grand gate of the Cullen estate. The boy lets out a series of barks, his silhouette flickering with a strange, playful energy. Irene is baffled when the boy declares himself to be her loyal dog with a smile. The boy beams happily, his playful devotion manifesting as imaginary ears and a wagging tail. Irene concludes there is something seriously wrong with the boy as she stares in deadpan silence. Still manifesting dog-like traits, the boy waves a cheerful goodbye to his new master.
A shadowy voice from behind the estate gates asks Irene if she is seeking Duke Cullen.
Irene stands firm before the mansion entrance, claiming to be a friend of the Duke's son.
Two guards in purple uniforms look down at the young girl with visible confusion and doubt.
The guards share a skeptical glance, unsure of how to handle the small child's unexpected claim.
Whispering among themselves, the guards pity Irene but fear losing their jobs if they let her in. A guard tells Irene to wait while they seek the Duke's permission to let her enter. Irene breathes a sigh of relief, glad she wasn't immediately turned away by the mansion's guards. Irene stands alone on the cobblestones, waiting patiently for the guards to return with an answer. A discarded letter lies on a cold floor surrounded by snowflakes and shards of broken glass.
Dark thoughts echo a question about who gave the order to find someone's lost parents.
Porcelain shatters against a wall as a voice screams about a broken promise of eternal companionship. A purple-haired figure shouts in despair, demanding to know why their family bond was severed. A lonely child stands in a frozen room, surrounded by jagged ice and a sense of betrayal. A bloody hand clenches into a tight fist as snowflakes drift through a dark, oppressive atmosphere. A purple-haired woman looks down with a cold, possessive gaze, wondering where her target has gone.
Narrative text reflects on a child being adorable, contrasting with the dark memories just shown.
A charming nursery mobile with stars and clouds hangs peacefully in a sunlit room.
A baby with light purple hair sleeps peacefully under a warm white blanket in a crib.
A purple-haired man and a blonde woman discuss the name Richard for their sleeping infant.
The man gazes at the baby, wishing for him to become a righteous and successful person.
A close-up of the infant reveals the parents' deep hopes for the child's bright future. The blonde woman smiles with maternal affection as she watches the man interact with their son.
Bathed in golden light, the small family enjoys a moment of pure happiness among blooming flowers.
Dark thoughts accuse someone of ruining a clan despite promising to make their son happy.
A blonde woman walks through a dark hallway, her posture slumped in a state of melancholy. Gritting her teeth, the blonde woman clenches her jaw as she navigates her silent, dark surroundings.
A final, ominous thought bubble warns that things will not be as easy as they seem.
A peaceful winter landscape settles in as snow gently covers the towering pine trees.
A baby with purple hair rests in a basket as an observer questions the infant's identity.
The woman in the habit-like cloak warns the men that the child is the son of a villainous archmage, but the man dismisses the danger and focuses on finding a way to neutralize the child's magic. The man asks if she is truly okay with a dangerous, unpaid mission, but the woman in the habit-like cloak clarifies that she isn't interested in money. The mysterious woman in the habit-like cloak offers a knowing smile amidst the falling snow. A cold wind sweeps across the snowy plains toward the distant Grand Mansion. A child's mobile hangs above a bed, signaling a shift to a more peaceful setting.
Irene looks around in surprise, her golden eyes wide as she takes in her surroundings. As Irene enters the room, she reflects on the original storyline, while the guard informs her that Duke Cullen is busy and she must be brief.
The guard sternly warns Irene to confess if she is lying because the Duke despises dishonesty.
With a final wish of good luck, the heavy doors open to reveal the Duke's office.
Duke Michael Cullen, a refined man with purple hair and glasses, sits at his cluttered desk.
Irene stands before the Duke, appearing small and determined in the vast sunlit room.
The Duke looks up from his work, his sharp gaze fixing on the young visitor.
Setting his glasses aside, the Duke prepares to listen to what the girl has to say. Michael Cullen prompts Irene to speak while she nervously reacts to his imposing presence. Michael Cullen asks for any identifying details, while Irene fears his intense gaze suggests he is ready to eliminate a fraud. Irene nervously describes the target's long purple hair, worrying that a single mistake will cost her life.
Irene explains that the hair color fades at the ends and the boy's name is Richard.
Irene frantically brainstorms a way to provide immediate, undeniable proof that the child is his son. She focuses intensely on her memories, searching for the specific trait that characterizes Richard. A hazy memory of a woman wearing a distinct, long earring flashes through Irene's mind. Irene brightly points out that Richard wears a long, white, square earring on his right ear.
The Duke's eyes widen in shock as the girl mentions the specific piece of jewelry. He quickly opens a drawer to reveal the matching earring and a portrait of his lost son.
Michael Cullen holds up the jewelry and asks if this is the one, to which Irene confirms and adds that Richard sometimes causes frost with his ice magic. Overcome with urgency, the Duke demands to see the child immediately before they discuss anything else. Michael Cullen tries to rush out, but Irene stops him to explain her personal issues, while he promises the full support of the Cullen clan to handle any problems. Irene reasons that she needs to talk to Richard first because he is unaware of her visit. Irene promises to take full responsibility and bring Richard to the estate the following day. The Duke watches her closely, his expression a mix of skepticism and lingering hope.
A moment of confused silence follows as the Duke processes Irene's bold and unexpected claims.
Michael Cullen finally asks how she managed to discover that Richard is his son. Irene explains that she saw posters around the Capitol and realized the description matched her friend. She adds that the resemblance between the Duke and Richard is almost identical and quite surprising. A flashback reveals a notice board where the baby's posters were displayed as rumors spread to Sharn. Map graphics illustrate the week-long distance between the capital, Albion, and the rural outskirts.
Irene begs the Duke to trust her so that the family can finally be reunited.
Michael Cullen relents, asking for a telegram address so he can send a carriage for them tomorrow.
The Duke thanks her and offers transportation, but Irene declines, saying her friend is already waiting.
Irene exits the manor gates just as the silver-haired boy runs toward her, calling her master. The silver-haired boy asks if the meeting went well, and Irene thanks him for his help. The boy excitedly claims he is a good puppy for waiting while Irene checks her coins. Irene finds the title of master embarrassing as she handles gold coins and a blue gem. Irene cries out in panic as the precious blue gem fragment slips from her hand.
The silver-haired boy retrieves the fragment while Aaron emphasizes its importance and the danger of losing it.
The silver-haired boy notes the coincidence and tells his master that he also possesses similar items.
Irene is stunned as she asks the smiling boy if he really has more fragments. The silver-haired boy reveals 3 additional glowing blue gem fragments held in both of his hands. Irene stares in shock as the boy asks if his fragments match the one she has.
Narrative text reflects on the original storyline where only important lead characters played a role.
The narrative explains that of the 7 total fragments, Erno Etom has 3, Richard has 1, and the last is unknown. The silver-haired boy holds out his hands, showcasing the glowing blue fragments he possesses. The narrative reveals that these fragments belong to the individual destined to be the future Grand Priest. A close-up reveals the Stone of Balance, a legendary dragon's relic and original form of the fragments.
Long ago, the first head of the Edom clan, Batad Edom, distributed these broken relics to those in need.
A visual summary notes that 3 fragments belong to Erno Etom, 1 to Richard, and 1 is missing.
Narrative text emphasizes the mystery surrounding the location of the final 2 remaining stone fragments.
The silver-haired boy claims his fragments match the master's and explains he brought them out just in case.
Beaming with pride, the silver-haired boy displays the fragments as golden light sparkles around him.
The silver-haired boy asks for her opinion, but Irene can only respond with a confused mutter. Irene doubts the fragments are identical despite their similarity and tells the boy to keep them. Irene reflects on the impossibility of meeting a future Grand Priest candidate randomly on the street. Narrative text dramatically highlights the significant title held by the boy who will become the Grand Priest. The scene shifts to a temple where the future Grand Priest suffers under a greedy superior's authority. Narrative text notes his straightforward nature, though he acts much softer toward the female lead character.
The silver-haired boy looks up with devotion, expressing his earnest desire to be a useful dog.
Crying and feeling inadequate, the silver-haired boy apologizes profusely for his perceived uselessness to his master. Irene suggests that since he has nowhere else to go, they should return to her place first. Joyfully thanking his master, the silver-haired boy promises to be a loyal dog while Irene mentally surrenders. The sun begins to set over the grand architecture of the estate as the day ends. Irene instructs the silver-haired boy to wait while she talks to her friend about a private matter. The silver-haired boy kneels obediently, happily confirming that he understands and will stay exactly where he is. Irene tells the boy to stay put as she approaches the large, ornate doors of the building. A gloved hand pushes open the heavy doors, casting a long shadow into the dark hallway. Irene calls out for Richard as she enters the dim room, looking toward the lit fireplace. Irene apologizes for leaving without notice and asks if Richard is inside while searching the shadows. Irene mentions bringing scones for him, but stops in shock as her boot crunches against broken porcelain. Irene panics at the sight of broken glass, just as Richard calls her name from the darkness. Standing in the middle of a trashed room, Richard asks if she successfully found his family. Irene excitedly confirms the news, explaining that his father is coming to pick him up tomorrow. Irene cheerfully suggests they go together tomorrow, unaware of Richard's cold and silent reaction. A close-up shows hands clasped together as narrative text repeats the intention to see his parents. Richard stands silhouetted against a moonlit window, his expression unreadable and his posture tense with emotion. A simple question of why echoes through the dark room, signaling Richard's deep internal conflict. Richard asks why he must go to such a place, catching Irene off guard with his resistance.
A visual memory of a pinky promise symbolizes a bond of trust and a shared future.
A gloved hand holds Richard's hand tightly, mirroring the intense connection between the two characters. A dark thought bubble reflects a sense of deep betrayal as the word "even you" appears. Richard cries out in despair, demanding to know why Irene is also choosing to abandon him.
Narrative text emphasizes that his feelings were sincere despite the current misunderstanding and pain.
Grabbing Irene in a desperate hug, Richard shouts that he has always been honest with her. Richard grips her arm tightly and demands to know why she lied to him about their future.
Richard accuses Irene of leaving him just as his parents did, while a broken rose lies nearby.
A flashback shows a purple-haired woman laughing joyfully, contrasting sharply with the current scene of heartbreak. Narrative text claims his words are useless because he now has a family and a home. Richard kneels before Irene, his head bowed in sorrow as snow begins to drift into the room. Irene insists she didn't lie and promises she isn't abandoning him because they will always be family. Irene leans in close and softly tells Richard that she likes him very much to comfort him. Irene explains that his family loves him even more than she does, leaving Richard looking completely stunned. Irene looks at Richard and mentions his parents, indicating they are the topic of discussion.
A missing person poster offers a massive reward for information on a purple-haired baby.
Iron explains that for 10 years, his family searched and hoped he was alive somewhere. Iron insists that she and Richard are definitely family, referencing the baby photo. Heavy tears fall onto the old portrait as Richard processes the truth of his origins.
Richard weeps while gazing at the picture of himself as a baby, finally finding his identity.
Iron asks Richard to please come with her, causing him to react with surprise.
Richard hides his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the sudden revelation of his past.
Iron questions if Richard created the dream, noting the spilled candy and items on the floor.
Light glows from the mansion window where the two children continue their private, emotional discussion. The grand estate stands silent under the full moon as the night's events unfold.
A magical device activates as a voice addresses Duke Colin, signaling a breakthrough in the search.
An off-screen voice confirms that magic results prove the shapeshifter told the truth about Richard's identity.
Duke Colin looks at a photo and decides to monitor the children and keep his promise first. A close-up focuses on the baby portrait of Richard, confirming he is the missing heir.
Looking at many photos, Duke Colin expresses relief that his son is still alive.
A promotional credit page encourages readers to visit the Scanlation Group's official website.
Night clouds drift past the moon, signaling a transition in the unfolding family drama.
The translation team's logo is displayed over a high-angle view of the messy guest room.
Iron confirms something to Richard, reinforcing their connection as they sit together in the mess.